Chapter 498. Return to the Origin? Shingon, don't tell me that means the Heaven Realm will return to the Origin in the future. Lan Yu's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise as she stared at Shingon. Not the Heaven Realm, but the entire universe. Everything is included in it. Shingon said mysteriously, I don't know if you've heard of it, but there was a rumor in ancient times. No matter where it is, according to the time of the Origin continent, there will be an annihilation tide in the chaos every 9 yuans. The tide this time will sweep across all worlds. The wine cup in Qin Yuan's hand couldn't help but tremble slightly, and a drop of amber-colored wine actually spilled out from the cup. It was obvious that unprecedented tempestuous waves had surely surged within his heart. You're saying that the annihilation tide that occurs every 9 yuans is coming. No wonder the entire purple gold continent is plotting against the fallen god Abyss. They probably want to obtain endless treasures to strengthen their forces as much as possible and stabilize their positions. They want to suppress the returning 100 races like the ancient Yao clan. Qin Yuan said with a strange smile. He looked calm, but his heart was not calm. In the future world, the Origin continent will be the most exciting stage. Interesting, very interesting. With the return of the 100 races, maybe the prosperity of the ancient times will really happen. The more lively, the more fun it is. I'm already tired of the Heaven Realm and want to come to the Origin continent to play. Lan Yu had a faint smile on her face. Forget it, the annihilation tide won't affect us. However, the million-treasure Crimson Tide in the fallen god Abyss is a good opportunity. How can we miss out on such a lively event? Shingon, who thought for a moment, and also felt that the annihilation tide was too far away for the current situation. He pulled the topic back to the fallen god Abyss. That's right. The God's Fall Abyss has always been erratic, wandering in the void. Although the entrances are all over the universe, unfortunately, those entrances are constantly changing with the Abyss. It's not easy to find them. Even if you enter TSK, the soldiers in the Abyss are not fun to play with. The treasures in the treasure bowl and the money tree are things that can't be touched. This million-treasure Crimson Tide is really a good opportunity. Blue Rain let out a strange laugh. His eyes flickered with an indescribable light as they spun around. It was as if all sorts of schemes flashed through his mind. Although I don't know who is trying to muddy the waters, it's still beneficial to us. We don't have any other abilities, but fishing in troubled waters isn't a problem. Shengong's smile also became brighter. Maybe we could get a few world source seeds, then. Shengong and the other two looked at each other and laughed strangely. When Shui Wuhin and Wu Wudi saw this, they couldn't help but look at each other. They saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. In the South Pole, the head of the 8 Demon Kings, the Rock Demon King, who was dressed like a scholar, held an invitation in his hand. He looked at the invitation and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, he put it down and stood in the snow. He looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. He muttered, so fast, this cultivation speed is really incredible. 4th Revolution Yao Core. Ancient Yao King Realm. In just a few short years, how did he cultivate? Monster King of Heaven's Punishment, annihilating a first-rate sect. His battle prowess is far beyond his realm. Even though the Rock Monster King had lived for thousands of years, he was still only at the 6th transformation. He'd only broken through after the Sky Lightning platform had been created and he'd benefited from the Violet Lightning Rain. This was also because of his own accumulation. But Di Shurtian's cultivation was like drinking water. In just a few short years, he'd broken through from the 2nd transformation all the way to the 4th. 2 breakthroughs in a row. It was true that comparing monsters would only infuriate monsters. A subordinate who delivered the invitation has condensed a monster core. Southern Barbarian, Di Shurtan, God's Fall Abyss, Myriad Treasures Crimson Tide. It seems that I really have to go and take a look this time. The Rock Demon King muttered to himself. After pondering for a while, he suddenly ordered, tell all the monsters in the South Pole to prepare. We'll set off for Southern Barbarian in 3 days. Yes, not far away. A resounding response sounded. Di Shi Tian's invitation. Interesting, I've never seen his southern barbarian myriad Demon Valley before. TSK. Does God's Fall Abyss have something to do with him? I must go and take a look. In a blood-colored lake, a giant flood dragon laughed strangely and wriggled a few times, then ordered its subordinates to prepare for the trip. Qingqiu Mountain. Su Tianxiang, Baihu, was wearing a palace dress and holding an invitation in her hand. She couldn't help but wrinkle her perfect nose and snorted in dissatisfaction. This damn tiger. He clearly remembered the 16-year Qingqiu Mountain Pact. Now that the 16-year period is almost up, not only did he not come, but he even wants me to go to Southern Barbarian. Who do you think I am? Her expression was full of dissatisfaction, and her eyes flashed with a cunning light. I heard that he was the king of Southern Barbarian and made Chun, she the demon empress. Chun, she still has his bloodline in his body. No, such an excellent powerhouse like him must not be easily let go. And the hidden danger in my body. I won't let you go when I go to Southern Barbarian this time. In Baihu's heart, there seemed to be something that was difficult to say. Although she didn't want to admit it, Baihu herself knew very well that although she had never said it out loud, she had an indescribable good impression of Di Shi Tian in her heart. Especially when she witnessed with her own eyes how Di Shi Tian experienced all kinds of danger step by step from an ordinary black tiger to reach where he was today. A touch of affection had long begun to grow in the bottom of her heart. Otherwise, when she met the witch Ding Dang in the Tongtian Tower back then, she wouldn't have behaved like that and even called herself his wife without hesitation. It could be said that she didn't even care about her reputation. I'd like to see what has become of Southern Barbarian now. Putting down the invitation, she also began to instruct the clansmen in Qingqiu. Qingqiu was the ancestral land of the Fox clan and was almost the birthplace of the Fox clan. Almost all kinds of Fox clan lived here. Under the reign of purple thunder from the heavenly thunder tower, most of the foxes, who were known for their intelligence, could transform. Di Shi Tian's invitation was sent to the hands of the 8 demon kings. Only the demon kings knew the contents of the invitation. As for what was written, it was difficult for outsiders to figure out. However, almost unanimously, they ordered their subordinates to start preparing at the fastest speed. After packing up their luggage, they quickly went to the Southern Barbarian in a hidden way. For a time, the small Southern Barbarian became the gathering place of the demon clan. In the immortal cultivation world, almost all the cultivators' eyes were on the Scarlet Tide Island in the EC. A huge group of cultivators swarmed over, completely disrupting the original formation of those powerhouses. Facing the entire immortal cultivation world, those powerhouses could only bitterly swallow this bitter fruit. In their hearts, they hated the person who leaked the news. They couldn't wait to eat his flesh and drink his blood. The plan that had been planned for thousands of years was known to everyone in a day. All their efforts were made for others. It would be strange if they could swallow this resentment. Others need to enter the fallen abyss through the Scarlet Tide Island, but I don't. You want to find me? Dream on. Why get boundless benefits and build the demon city? Even if they know that I leaked the news, what can they do to me? Di Shi Tian naturally knew from the intelligence that at this moment, those big sects in the immortal cultivation world were frantically searching for the person who spread the rumors. Unfortunately, there was no way to find him now. Not a single clue was left. It was a joke for him to come to the Southern Barbarian. However, this matter should be carefully planned. It is not easy to get benefits from the thousands treasure red tide. Di Shi Tian knew that the other 8 demon kings had begun to move to the Southern Barbarian. However, according to the speed, it would take at least half a month to gradually begin to arrive at the Southern Barbarian. But he had a plan in mind. During this period of time, he had learned a lot about the fallen god abyss. Naturally, he knew that this thousands treasure red tide was definitely not dedicated to delivering treasures to people. Madman D, although you've stirred up the water this time, it's not easy to get benefits from the myriad treasure Scarlet Tide. If you're not careful, all of your Southern Barbarian little demons will be buried in the abyss. The red tide and tsunami caused by infinite treasures are not a joke. Ming said after a long silence. For example, there was a tsunami on the sea in the secular world. When the tsunami came, the white waves rose to the sky, rolling up huge waves of thousands of feet high. In front of the tsunami, no matter if it was a mortal or a ship, they would be easily crushed into powder. The destructive power of nature was almost irresistible. In front of the tsunami, the people of the secular world were like ants, unable to resist. And this thousands treasure red tide was formed by the convergence of infinite treasures, led by the treasure bowl. The scene of the red tide was like a tsunami in the secular world. However, it was not seawater, but infinite treasures. Just the seawater had such power, so all of them were treasures. If one were to stand in front of such a red tide, they would be attacked by countless magical treasures on the spot, rolling over and crushing over. Not even dregs would be left behind. It was the same as being hit by countless magical treasures. If it was just one wave, it would be fine, but behind it was a surging red tide. That scene was terrifying. It was said that there was once an ancient giant who didn't believe in heresy and stood in front of the crimson tide. He wanted to face it head-on. After being crushed by the crimson tide, there was nothing left of him. As for whether he was dead or alive, no one knew. Anyway, no one had seen him again. It's foolish to resist the red tide head-on. Going with the flow and following the flow is the way of the king. Ever since D. Shirtion knew about the red tide, he had already come up with a plan after countless deductions in his mind. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 499. In the face of the overwhelming crimson tide, if they were to face it head-on, even the ancient giants would be obliterated to the point where even their spirit would be annihilated. After all, among the treasures that were whizzing over and being drawn over by the treasure basin, who knew how many of them would cause great harm to the body, and even more how many of them would weaken the spirit. In front of the terrible torrent, even the indestructible body or indestructible divine soul of a venerable would be obliterated. The crimson tide was like a big mill that would grind everything into powder. Most of the ancient giants, such as cultivators, would cultivate the indestructible primordial spirit, while martial artists would cultivate the indestructible body. Only when one reached the level of a peerless master could he cultivate the indestructible body and indestructible primordial spirit at the same time. Both the physical body and primordial spirit would be indestructible. At that time, it could be said that there were no flaws in the body. That was why they were called peerless masters, the peak existence of heaven and earth. However, the creation of heaven and earth was magical. No one could guarantee that there was no supreme treasure in the world that could obliterate the indestructible body and divine soul. It just so happened that the innate spirit treasure was a supreme treasure that could cause unignorable damage to peerless masters. Peerless masters were difficult to obliterate, but they were not indestructible. If a peerless master wanted to stop the crimson tide of treasures, he would not be able to do so. It was a kind of heavenly force, an unstoppable tide. Generally speaking, it was not easy to find enough benefits in the crimson tide. The most frightening thing was that when the crimson tide came, all the soldier souls in the Godfall abyss would wake up. The awakening of these soldier spirits was to intercept the countless broken divine weapons and magical treasures contained in the crimson tide. These were the existences that nurtured the soldier spirits. For the soldier spirits, these broken divine weapons and magical treasures were like family to them. They had to be guided back, separated from the crimson tide. If one wanted to seize the treasures in the crimson tide, one would inevitably encounter the soldier souls. If there was a conflict, it would be a great danger. That was why for countless years, no one dared to have any ideas about the crimson tide of treasures. Haha, crazy emperor, if you can really get some benefits this time, it will be endless for you in the future. If you don't have a solution, I have a temporary solution. Ming was also extremely enthusiastic about this matter. Since she had spoken now, it was clear that she had thought about this matter for a long time. What method? Shirtion asked without any surprise. In ancient times, there was a very mysterious formation called the heaven-searching earth treasure capturing formation. Nether said excitedly, "This formation is extremely miraculous. Once it's set up, you just have to activate it and you'll be able to capture any ownerless treasures within a radius of 1,000,000 miles around the formation." However, there was a flaw. Every time it was activated, it could only capture one treasure. It was fine if it was ownerless, but unless one's strength was about the same as the owner's, it would also be ineffective, and there was even the possibility of a backlash. If there's really no other way, this array formation can still help you get some benefits. Although this array formation had a huge flaw, it made sense. If he could suddenly capture a treasure or a world source seed, TSK, he would have struck it rich. With the source of life in his body, he could immediately open up an inner world. This array formation is quite interesting. Shurtian's eyes flickered a few times. After pondering for a moment, he said this. However, he did not immediately ask Ming about the method of setting up the formation. Instead, he turned around and returned to the Linglong treasure pagoda. He told Hu and the others that he was going to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. He would naturally come out of seclusion in half a month. As for the other matters, he would leave them to his subordinates. He entered the third heaven of the Linglong treasure pagoda alone. The first heaven could reverse time by 10 times, the second heaven could reverse time by 50 times, and the third heaven could reverse time by 100 times. Half a month in the outside world was equivalent to 50 months in the third heaven. It was a total of 4 years. The Linglong treasure pagoda's ability to reverse time was heaven-defying. It could turn 1 day into 100 days. It was precisely because of this that Shurtian was able to increase his cultivation level while developing his forces. With the appearance of a large number of demons with inner cores, the demon city's foundation had been moved to the second heaven. The first heaven was empty and was given to the other demons to cultivate. The Tao of the Emperor. Other than myself, all are subordinates. Heaven and earth are vast, and only I am supreme. I control life and death. Those who obey me will prosper. Those who oppose me will perish. As soon as Shurtian entered the third heaven, he began to cultivate. His body absorbed the energy of heaven and earth and the power of desire. In his mind, he was constantly deducing his own techniques. There were 3,000 Daos, and all of them could be connected. From the moment he created the Imperial World-Shocking Book, it meant that he had completely embarked on the Tao of the Emperor. The Imperial World-Shocking Book could be considered a peerless book on the Tao of the Emperor. Because it was created by him, many things were incomplete. However, there are also great benefits. This technique was created completely according to him. It was the most suitable technique for him, and could be constantly deduced as he cultivated, adding in all sorts of wondrous ideas. Perfecting the Imperial World-Shocking Book. There was no room to change other techniques, but this book had the possibility of being continuously modified. Until now, Shurtian was still perfecting and deducing. The Imperial World-Shocking Book was now many times more complete than it had been at the beginning. It included the method of forming demon veins, the method of opening the Imperial True Acupoint, the method of cultivating the Imperial Chi of the Imperial Tyrant Heart Mantra, the ultimate battle techniques of the Imperial Way of the Emperor. Some had been perfected, and some were in the process of being perfected. At this moment, Shurtian was deducing the unique divine light technique of the Imperial World-Shocking Book, and the mystique that was derived from the technique. He was even deducing a set of seals. Divine light, as long as one cultivated to the Ascension realm or the ancient Demon King realm and formed a territory, could naturally derive a mystique. However, at the beginning, no matter who it was, the divine light would be the same. There was not much difference unless there was a change in the technique, such as absorbing some unique evil chi in the world and condensing it. For example, there was a rainbow transformation art. This was also a type of divine light, and it was one of the best. Its speed was inconceivably fast, and with a single leap, It could transform into a rainbow and travel hundreds of thousands of kilometers. This divine light absorbed the dark young evil chi of the golden crow from the sun. There were all sorts of evil chi in the world. With a special method, it could form a unique divine light. To cultivate the Tao of the emperor, the divine light naturally had to absorb the imperial chi. There were dragon veins in the world, and those who could obtain dragon veins could be called emperors in the mortal world. There is also evil chi in dragon veins called true dragon evil chi. If I want to condense the imperial divine light, the evil chi in ordinary dragon veins would not be enough. Moreover, I am extracting the imperial chi in dragon veins. If I want to find it, I have to find a supreme dragon cave where 9 dragons gather. Di Shurtian deduced for a long time, referring to the condensation method of countless divine lights in his mind. In the end, he made a preliminary deduction of the imperial divine light. First of all, the evil chi needed was rare in the world, and it had to be a supreme dragon cave where 9 dragons gathered. This was not urgent. With the intelligence network now spread across half of the immortal cultivation world, if he wanted to find such a supreme dragon cave, there should be a chance to find it. When I master the 6 desires, I can derive a mystique. When I completely master the 4th volume, my stomach may be able to obtain the great stomach tolerance mystique. There is also the Tao of the imperial way, devour of the Tao Tai. I can also understand it. When I master the 5th volume, I should be able to cultivate the heavenly I mystique. He secretly deduced and integrated the essence of various cultivation techniques. In his mind, there was a strange golden book filled with a noble aura that kept circling. Countless mysterious demon words were integrated into this book of imperial shock. It actually formed a book in his body. It was very mysterious. In terms of weapons, I have the tiger soul and the imperial way of the imperial emperor, unparalleled in the world. However, in addition to weapons, I should also create a battle technique for hand-to-hand combat. In the future, when I leave the saber, I will have a way to deal with the enemy. He thought about it again. Indeed, in terms of battle skills, other than the saber technique, there were not many that could be praised. This was clearly a little unorthodox. This would not do. With the tiger soul in hand, once the tiger soul was unleashed, it would be a life and death situation. It would not end until one of them was dead. He could not throw away the advantage of his monster body. Just because of this, using his demon body to fight could also temper his physical body. What kind of battle technique should I cultivate? Fist? Palm? Finger? The authority of the imperial emperor lies in the imperial seal. Once the imperial seal falls, it is as if I am there. The imperial seal is the seal. Palm is the seal. Fist is the seal. Finger is the seal. The imperial way of the imperial emperor is born from the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Every one of them is a peak battle technique. I am afraid that I will not be able to create a battle technique that surpasses them. In that case, I might as well turn the saber into a seal. Di Shurtan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his closed eyes. 2 rays of burning light shot out. He suddenly stood up and waved his hand in front of him. Using his palm as a saber, he waved it out. The overbearing saber chi burst out from the edge of his palm, drawing a saber mark in front of his body. The saber chi spread everywhere. After the saber was waved out, he immediately used the 8 desolation steps and practiced the saber technique. However, within the saber technique, there are also palm techniques. Slowly, no matter if it was a palm, a fist, a finger, or even a saber technique, he willed it freely. In the 3rd heaven, he practiced without any scruples. Outside his body, there were all kinds of saber chi and palm wind. As his body moved within a radius of 100 feet, he was everywhere. Slowly, every strike he made had an imposing aura that was as heavy as a mountain. He wanted to reverse the saber technique into a seal technique. The death of the celestial and devil was reversed into the celestial and devil seal. The imperial wrath was reversed into the imperial seal. Even the devour of the Tao Tai, which was being deduced, was reversed into the Tao Tai seal. After the imperial way of the imperial emperor, he added another battle technique called the imperial seal. Without sleep or rest, he continued for a full 3 years. Imperial seal of the imperial emperor, celestial and devil seal. Suddenly, Di-Shirtan, who was moving quickly, suddenly paused. With a light shout, his right hand quickly moved in front of him. In an instant, countless seals flashed by, leaving behind countless afterimages. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 500. Boom, boom, boom. The void shook violently as the power of desire gathered like a tide and gathered in his hand. As the seal moved, the power of desire suddenly spread out. Every strand of it turned into a demonic god. These demonic gods were all making different kinds of seals. With a loud rumble, it condensed in the hands of the Sakura as a simple and unadorned seal appeared in his hands. On the seal, countless figures of gods and devils were constantly changing. Every time it changed, the will of death on the ancient seal would surge even higher, spreading out in all directions. Everything in the world would be invaded by this will of death. Rumble. Di-Shirtan sent out a seal toward a mountain a few hundred feet away. The godly demon seal immediately flew out of his hand and expanded in the wind. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a giant ancient seal that was hundreds of feet wide. The seal landed on the mountain peak, and with a bang, the entire mountain peak was smashed into dust. Endless death, intent spread out, and the surrounding flowers and trees instantly lost their vitality. Their auras were replaced by the death intent. They were withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. They were withering in the endless will of death. Their hearts were dead, and their souls were gone. Good, good, good. In 3 years, I have understood the key to reversing the saber art into the seal art. I have infused my mind into the imperial seal. Not only is the attack unparalleled, but the artistic conception can destroy everything. This set of seal art will not be inferior to the saber art. From now on, there will be one more battle skill in the book of the shocking emperor. Di-Shirtan saw the power of the demonic god seal and could not help but nod in satisfaction. Fortunately, it was only the saber art of the extreme emperor's way that was transformed into the seal art. He had already understood the artistic conception. He only needed to reverse the saber art into the seal art. Otherwise, he would not be able to succeed in such a short time. At this moment, there was the saber art for weapons and the seal art for hand-to-hand combat. These two battle skills were enough to deal with any unforeseen circumstances. With a wave of his hand, he scanned his surroundings. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked up into the sky. With a thought, a stairway to heaven appeared in front of him. At the end of the stairway, there was a door to the pagoda. The door of the pagoda was covered with countless mysterious patterns, and it was tightly shut. That was the path to the fourth heaven. Now that I've reached the fourth transformation realm of the ancient demon king, I'm as strong as an earth immortal. My body is strong, and I'm protected by the eye of heavenly punishment. Watch me blast open the door to the fourth layer of heaven. Indra raised his eyebrows. His eyes shot out a divine light that was several feet long. His body trembled, and the aura that he had been restraining spread out like a tide, shrouding his entire body, making him look incomparably tall. In an instant, everything around him seemed to be under his control. Bang! He stepped on the staircase with steady steps. The staircase had 9 steps and was as heavy as a mountain. A majestic pressure pressed down on his body. His feet couldn't help but sink a bit. He climbed up the peak and pushed open the pagoda door. I want to step into the fourth heaven. The expression on Di-Shirtan's face was incomparably resolute, carrying a kind of determination that would not give up until he achieved his goal. This time, he must ascend to the fourth layer of heaven. It was not confidence, but necessity. Back then, in the Heavenly Monster secret realm, Heavenly Monster Z You once said that everything in the secret realm would be sealed and suppressed in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. I can only obtain the corresponding treasures when my strength reaches a certain level. In the first layer of heaven, I obtained tens of thousands of demon clans' cultivation methods. Although there's nothing in the second layer of heaven, I can subdue all the demons in the secret realm in the third layer of heaven. There are millions of transformed demons with inner cores. These are important in the secret realm, but there are still a few treasures that have not appeared. Back then, there was the Spider Lily Island with countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures, the entire Huang Quan Sacred River, the heavenly Inyang Bridge, and the last thing that Ziwa mentioned, there were two heavenly demons of the demon clan suppressed in the secret realm. One is called Ancestor Tian Silkworm, and the other is Old Monster Huang Quan. If I have the chance in the future, I'll take them for my own use. If I can get the heavenly Inyang Bridge, with its ability to suppress everything, I can suppress the Crimson Tide. Only then can I obtain the greatest benefits. Today, I must enter the fourth layer of heaven. Countless thoughts flashed through Di Shirkian's eyes. He dared to have designs on the Million Treasures Crimson Tide because he could get the heavenly Inyang Bridge. With the heavenly Inyang Bridge's ability to suppress a part of the world, he could cross the Crimson Tide just like how it crossed the Huang Quan Sacred River. He could cross the Million Treasures Crimson Tide and treat it as a raging river. Since it was impossible to resist the raging river from the front, blocking it would only result in being smashed to pieces. Then I'll build a bridge over the river. Under the bridge is water. I'll stand on the bridge and fish for the moon in the water. There are treasures under the bridge. I'm not afraid of not being able to fish for the moon. Long ago, he had carefully deduced that all the treasures in the secret realm were in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. The heavenly Inyang Bridge and the Huang Quan Sacred River were most likely in the fourth or fifth layer of heaven. No matter which one it was, it had boundless benefits for him. If it was the Huang Quan Sacred River, after he got it, he could merge it with the sacred river in the divine eye of heaven's punishment, which would immediately make the Huang Quan inside complete. The power of the divine eye of heaven's punishment would be greatly increased, and the first innate divine restriction in the divine eye would be completed on the spot. Maybe it would make the divine eye evolve again and give birth to the second innate divine restriction. At that time, maybe the power of the divine punishment would be able to deal with the ferocity of the Million Treasures Crimson Tide. Today, no one can stop me. Sakura took a deep breath. His body shook as he straightened his back. An arrogant aura whizzed out, causing the surrounding air to tremble violently. It was as if this movement had shaken the mountain that was pressing down on his shoulders. There was a strange rumbling sound, and there was a faint pressure above his head. He lifted his foot and stepped forward. When he took the second step, a pressure 10 times stronger than before rushed toward him. With a bang, it was like a train crashing toward him, trying to knock him down the stairway. Humph! No matter how much you trample on me, I will remain as immovable as a mountain. Di Shirtian ran his cultivation method, and the Huangji true force filled his whole body. His feet stared at the stairway, and the roaring pressure bombarded his body. Immediately, there was a roar in front of him, and countless huge forces pressed on his body. Di Shirtian stood proudly, and his black robe exploded on the spot, revealing a perfect body. On his body, the muscles were undulating like dragons. On his skin, there was a layer of dense treasure light. Under the continuous tempering, the demon body had begun to transform into a treasure body. At the back of his head, his black hair fluttered wildly like a demon god. Bang, bang, bang. He lifted his foot, took 3 steps forward in a domineering manner, and went up to the 5th stairway. The vast pressure increased exponentially, and in the blink of an eye, it pressed down on him like an avalanche. His muscles trembled violently, and on his body, blue veins popped out. Under the pressure, he was almost about to break. There was a terrible sound coming from his bones, as if they could not withstand the endless pressure and were about to break under the pressure. Huh! He roared, and a purple-gold light flashed on his face. Suddenly, The purple gold mask that could cover half of his face appeared on his face. Suddenly, his aura increased by no less than 10 times, and in the blink of an eye, he blocked all the pressure outside his body. The Huangji mask could increase one's cultivation level. After wearing it, Di Shitian instantly reached the 5th transformation of the Yaodan realm. His strength was more than 10 times stronger than before. Just the stairway to heaven. Let's see how you can stop me. Bang, bang, bang. Amidst a series of heavy rumbling sounds, he firmly took another 3 steps up. He went up to the 8th stairway. However, at the same time, the vast pressure came crashing over like a tsunami. The space around Yi Shiwen was violently distorted. There were even more terrifying thunderbolts rumbling in the surroundings. Wave after wave, it was going to blow him off the stairway to heaven. Heavenly punishment divine, eye open. At the last moment, the heavenly punishment divine eye opened, and the heavenly punishment divine light shot out, blasting the vast pressure in front of him, and took the opportunity to climb to the top. Huangji Empyrean Seal, Celestial Demon Seal, 4th layer of heaven, open for me. Di Shitian roared at the pagoda door, and hit the door with the Celestial Demon Seal. In the blink of an eye, a vast force slammed the door open. Suddenly, a voice that could be crying or laughing rang in Di Shitian's ears. Tisk, tisk, it's been 60,000 years, and it's finally time for me, Tian's Silkworm Patriarch, to break free from his cage. Haha, I'm going to see the light of day again. I, Huang Quan, am going to see the light of day again. Quick, 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 little brother, let me out. Nonsense. A worm like you wants to fight with me? You should save me first. As soon as the door opened, Di Shitian didn't have the chance to see what was in the 4th layer of heaven. A strange noise rang in his ears, and it kept pouring into his mind. Old monster Huang Quan, Tian's Silkworm Patriarch? However, his reaction was astonishing. Almost in a flash, he understood who would appear in the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. It must be the 2 heavenly demons that were suppressed here by heavenly demon Ziyu. As soon as he stepped into the 4th layer of heaven, a message naturally entered his mind. Linglong Treasure Pagoda's 4th layer, time reversal 150 times. It's increased by 50 times. Di Shitian sucked in a breath of cold air. Here, time was reversed 150 times. It meant that 1 year outside the pagoda was 150 years inside the pagoda. This kind of reversal made him feel the heaven-defying power of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. Fortunately, although it was inconceivable, it was still within his expectations. His eyes focused, and he swept his gaze in front of him. Splash! The sound of water splashing could be heard, and an endless stream of water could be seen. Shockingly, a long river that stretched for an unknown length lay before their eyes. Countless remnant souls were sinking indeterminately within the river, and they were letting out shrill and miserable cries. A majestic aura came head-on, and he couldn't see the end of it. On top of it, an ancient bridge spanned across the river. 500 chapters. It's finally reached 500 chapters. It's really not easy to come this far. It's all thanks to the support of my brothers. I believe that as long as I have the support of my brothers, there will be 600 chapters, 700 chapters, or even 800 chapters. Thank you, everyone, for your continuous support. Let's keep going. Chapter 501. The ancient bridge was simple and unadorned. Its color was snow white, like snowflakes falling in winter. It was so white that people couldn't bear to destroy it. It was like the floating clouds in the sky, emitting a mysterious aura that transcended the mortal world. Unpredictably, countless cloud seals appeared on the ancient bridge. They constantly fluttered in the air, as if they had turned into pure white clouds. From the looks of it, it looked like a bridge of clouds. It was so pure and holy that people couldn't bear to leave any blemishes on it, as if it was a sin. Huang Quan Holy River and the heavenly Enyang Bridge. Di Shitian looked at the scene in front of him, and his eyes emitted a bright divine light. His originally apprehensive mood immediately calmed down. His eyes sparkled as he looked at the things in front of him. The heavenly Inyang Bridge was incomparably huge. It was like a white rainbow that spanned across the entire void, connecting to that unpredictable and mysterious place. It spanned across the Huang Quan Holy River. Even birds couldn't cross the Huang Quan Holy River. Only this ancient bridge could cross it. Otherwise, even immortals couldn't think of flying across the bridge. Regardless of whether one was riding a cloud or riding a divine light, all of these techniques and divine lights would naturally dissipate on a yellow spring sacred river. They couldn't stay in the air at all. It was a natural moat, an uncrossable natural moat. These two treasures are really here. As long as I get them, my heavenly punishment divine eyes will definitely be promoted again. The heavenly Inyang Bridge can help me get endless benefits from the myriad treasure Scarlet Tide. Haha, heavenly demon Ziyu, you really left me a great fortune. Di Shirtian thought of the benefits he could get after getting all of these things, and his eyes couldn't help but emit light. Hey, kid, what are you looking at? Take care of us, two seniors first. Quick, 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 save us from this damned cold light mirror. An impatient voice sounded again. In the end, it was almost sobbing as it muttered, Damn Ziyu, you crazy woman. Why did you have to suppress me, the heavenly silkworm patriarch here? Damn it. How many years has it been since the ancient times? I've had enough of these days. Humph. You're being suppressed by the cold light mirror, but do you think I'm having a good time? This 5 elements mountain weighs over 10 million kilograms, and it's hard for me to even move. The 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. It was too ruthless. Back then, you just wanted to hide in seclusion and not come out. Why did you have to suppress me for such a long time? Old Monster Huang Quan also shouted angrily. These curses also awakened Di Shirtian from his shock when he saw Huang Quan's holy river and the heaven-reaching Inyang Bridge. He suddenly remembered that Ziyu once said that there were 2 celestial demons that had existed since ancient times in the secret realm. He hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. On the empty seat on the left side, in the void, there was a purple full moon hanging in the air. From the purple moon, a beam of purple light like a heaven-reaching divine pillar fell straight down, covering an area with a radius of 1,000 feet below. Within this pillar of light, there was a man wearing a silver-white robe. His hair and beard had all turned snow-white, but his face was abnormally young. He had a youthful appearance, but he had the white hair and beard of an old man. The contrast between the two was completely different. Not only did it not give people a strange feeling, it gave people a very harmonious and normal impression. However, there was a deep sense of decadence on his body. Outside his body, a thick layer of ice actually condensed. The ground had already been completely sealed by ice. Even on his body, ice crystals were unceasingly spreading out before they were shattered by his tyrannical, demonic chi. The cycle repeated unceasingly. This was the heavenly silkworm patriarch. He was bound by the purple moon above his head and couldn't escape at all. That was not a purple moon, but a miraculous ancient mirror. It was called the Cold Light Mirror, and it was one of the treasures that purple moon carried with her in the past. Not far away, there was a mountain. This mountain was very strange. There were actually 5 peaks standing up like 5 fingers of a person, surrounding each other to form a complete mountain. And each peak of the mountain had a different color: green, red, gold, yellow, and blue. The light of the power of the 5 elements flickered on it. They intertwined and connected together and kept circulating in the power of the 5 elements. On each peak, there was an ancient seal demon character. Di Shirtian had learned the ancient demon character long ago, so naturally, he could easily recognize the meaning of the demon character on it. It was the 5 ancient demon characters of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It constantly flickered with a strong divine light. At the foot of the mountain, an old man with dark green hair was pressed down. It was so pitiful that only his head was still exposed. His whole body was pressed down under the mountain. He couldn't break free. It was just like the Monkey King in the Journey to the West that Di Tian saw in his previous life when he was suppressed under the Five Elements mountain. As for the Five Elements divine light, it spun like a millstone, and the suppressed old monster revealed a miserable expression. He became a little dispirited. Obviously, this was not a good thing. It seemed that the power of the Five Elements was obliterating his magic power and divine soul. One was suppressed under the cold light mirror, and the other was suppressed under the Five Elements mountain. A full 100,000 years. If it was anyone else, they would have long turned into ashes. Only a sky demon's cultivation and an indestructible body could last until now. Who are you? When Di Tian saw them, his eyes turned slightly, but he didn't call out their identities. He asked indifferently, as if he didn't know. Who are we? When Patriarch Tian Silkworm heard this, he quickly looked at old monster Huang Quan. Could it be that Purple Moon didn't tell this junior their identities? As he thought about it, he didn't reveal anything on his face. After that, he revealed an amiable expression as he looked at Sakura and spoke gently. You should be a descendant of the demon race. We are famous heavenly demons of the ancient demon race. In fact, we can be considered as your ancestors. That's right. Old monster Huang Quan continued with a face full of grief and indignation. Back then, in the ancient times, the two of us fought against those despicable humans who betrayed us and fought for a chance of survival for our demon clan. I don't know who did it behind our backs and suppressed the two of us here. It's been a full 100,000 years. If the two of us hadn't been plotted against back then and joined the battle against the humans would have definitely been defeated, Patriarch Tian Silkworm said without hesitation. The two old monsters who had survived from the ancient times spoke one after another, describing their image as incomparably fearless and extremely brave, as if they were heroes of the demon clan. Their image was incomparably lofty. Their great achievements were enough to prove the sun and moon. When Di Tian heard this, his expression didn't change at all, but he sneered in his heart. If Ziyue hadn't told him what kind of characters were suppressed back then, he might have been confused by their vivid narration. Although he hadn't seen what happened back then with his own eyes, he didn't even need to think about who to believe between Ziyue and these two old monsters. Now, he could only watch coldly as the two old monsters continued to bicker with each other. You want me to let you out? Di Tian said indifferently. He glanced at the mountain and the full moon in the sky. Yes, yes, yes. Patriarch Tian Silkworm raised his eyebrows and said excitedly, You are Ziyue's chosen successor. We had a good relationship with her back then. Hurry up and let us out. Once we're out of this cage, I have endless benefits to give you. My celestial silkworm's 9 transformations was a top cultivation method back in the ancient times. If you help me leave, I'll teach you this method. How about it? I'll also give you a treasure. I guarantee your strength will increase greatly. That's right. My Huang Quan soul refining method is also a top cultivation method. If you want it, I'll teach it to you when I'm free. The two old monsters kept promising endless benefits and treasures. It sounded so tempting that even immortals would be tempted. At this moment, they seemed to have transformed into demons, wholeheartedly tempting Di Tian to open the seal and let them go. Their lies were full of flaws. Di Tian shook his head and sneered inwardly. He didn't need to think to see through all the loopholes in the two old monsters' words. They wanted to fool him with this little benefit? What a joke. Not only did he want the promised treasures, but he also didn't want to let the two old monsters off the hook. Wanting to tease the two old monsters, he said in a mocking tone, Old monster Huang Quan and Patriarch Tian Silkworm, I've heard of you before. It said that you planned to go into seclusion during the Great War between the human race and the monster race to avoid responsibility. Later, you were captured by Ziyue and imprisoned in the heavenly monster secret realm. Since when have you become great heroes of the monster race? Ugh. As soon as he said this, the two old monsters who were still promising endless benefits couldn't help but be stunned. Old monsters who had lived for so many years were naturally no fools. They immediately realized that they had been tricked by this little demon in front of them. So you knew all along. How dare you lie to us? You're courting death. Even old ancestor Tion Silkworm's snow-white beard stood up. His eyes widened in anger, and a vast aura pressed down on Indra with earth-shattering momentum. Boom! Boom! Sakura only felt that the space outside his body suddenly congealed, as if it had completely solidified. Then, a pressure that was even more terrifying than when he was on the heaven stairway suddenly fell on him. It was as if the sky was falling. There was a terrible roar in the air, and in an instant he felt as if all the bones in his body were about to be crushed. The soil under his feet couldn't bear it and swallowed his feet. His whole body kept sinking into the ground. He was being pressed into the ground. Since the temptation failed, he immediately began to threaten, using force to suppress. With the terrifying aura of a heavenly monster, it exerted pressure on a little ancient monster king like Tion. It was like an elephant trying to crush an ant. Chapter 502. The ancient bridge was simple and unadorned. Its color was snow-white, like snowflakes falling in winter. It was so white that people couldn't bear to destroy it. It was like the floating clouds in the sky, emitting a mysterious aura that transcended the mortal world. Unpredictably, countless cloud seals appeared on the ancient bridge. They constantly fluttered in the air, as if they had turned into pure, white clouds. From the looks of it, it looked like a bridge of clouds. It was so pure and holy that people couldn't bear to leave any blemishes on it, as if it was a sin. Huang Quan Holy River and the Heavenly Inyang Bridge. Tian looked at the scene in front of him, and his eyes emitted a bright divine light. His originally apprehensive mood immediately calmed down. His eyes sparkled as he looked at the things in front of him. The Heavenly Inyang Bridge was incomparably huge. It was like a white rainbow that spanned across the entire void, connecting to that unpredictable and mysterious place. It spanned across the Huang Quan Holy River. Even birds couldn't cross the Huang Quan Holy River. Only this ancient bridge could cross it. Otherwise, even immortals couldn't think of flying across the bridge. Regardless of whether one was riding a cloud or riding a divine light, all of these techniques and divine lights would naturally dissipate on the Yellow Spring Sacred River. They couldn't stay in the air at all. It was a natural moat, an uncrossable natural moat. These two treasures are really here. As long as I get them, my heavenly punishment divine eyes will definitely be promoted again. The Heavenly Inyang Bridge can help me get endless benefits from the myriad treasure Scarlet Tide. Ha! Heavenly Demon Ziyu, you really left me a great fortune. Tion thought of the benefits he could get after getting all of these things, and his eyes couldn't help but emit light. Hey, kid, what are you looking at? Take care of us, two seniors first. Quick, 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 save us from this damn cold light mirror. An impatient voice sounded again. In the end, it was almost sobbing as it muttered, Damn Ziyu, you crazy woman. Why did you have to suppress me? The heavenly silkworm patriarch here? Damn it. How many years has it been since the ancient times? I've had enough of these days. You're being suppressed by the cold light mirror. But do you think I'm having a good time? This 5 elements mountain weighs over 10 million kilograms, and it's hard for me to even move. The 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. It was too ruthless. Back then, you just wanted to hide in seclusion and not come out. Why did you have to suppress me for such a long time? Old monster Huang Quan also shouted angrily. These curses also awakened Tion from his shock when he saw Huang Quan's holy river and the heaven-reaching Inyang Bridge. He suddenly remembered that Ziyu once said that there were 2 celestial demons that had existed since ancient times in the secret realm. He hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. On the empty seat on the left side, in the void, there was a purple full moon hanging in the air. From the purple moon, a beam of purple light like a heaven-reaching divine pillar fell straight down, covering an area with a radius of 1,000 feet below. In this light pillar, there was a man wearing a silver-white robe. His hair and beard had all turned snow-white, but his face had an abnormally youthful appearance. His youthful appearance had the white hair and beard of an old man. Looking at the stark contrast between the two, not only did it not give off a strange feeling, but also gave off a very harmonious and normal impression. However, there was a deep sense of decadence on his body. Outside his body, a thick layer of ice crystals actually condensed. The ground had already been completely frozen. Even on his body, the ice crystals were unceasingly spreading. Using his tyrannical demonic chi, he shattered them, repeating the cycle over and over again, unceasingly. This was the heavenly silkworm patriarch. He was bound by the purple moon above his head and couldn't escape at all. That was not a purple moon, but a miraculous ancient mirror. It was called the Cold Light Mirror, and it was one of the treasures that purple moon carried with her in the past. Not far away, there was a mountain. This mountain was very strange. There were actually 5 peaks standing up like 5 fingers of a person, surrounding each other to form a complete mountain. And each peak of the mountain had a different color: green, red, gold, yellow, and blue. The light of the power of the 5 elements flickered on it. They intertwined and connected together, and kept circulating in the power of the 5 elements. On each peak, there was an ancient sealed demon character. Tion had learned the ancient demon character long ago, so naturally he could easily recognize the meaning of the demon character on it. It was the 5 ancient demon characters of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It constantly flickered with a strong divine light. At the foot of the mountain, there was an old man with a head full of dark green hair. It was so pitiful that only his head was left outside. His whole body was pressed down under the mountain. He couldn't break free. It was just like the Monkey King in the Journey to the West that Tion had seen in his previous life, when he was suppressed under the 5 Elements mountain. As for the 5 Elements divine light, it spun like a millstone, and the suppressed old monster revealed a miserable expression. He became a little dispirited. Obviously, this was not a good thing. It seemed that the power of the 5 Elements was obliterating his spiritual power and soul. One was suppressed under the Cold Light Mirror, and the other was suppressed under the 5 Elements mountain for a full 100,000 years. If it were anyone else, they would have long been reduced to ashes. Only this heavenly demon's cultivation had reached an indestructible body, so he could last until now. "Who are you?" When Tion saw them, his eyes turned slightly, but he didn't call out their identities. He asked indifferently, as if he didn't know. "Who are we?" When Patriarch Tian Silkworm heard this, he quickly looked at old monster Huang Quan. Could it be that Purple Moon didn't tell this junior our identities? As he thought about it, he didn't reveal any emotions on his face. He then revealed an amiable expression as he looked at Sakura and said gently, "You should be a descendant of the demon race. We are famous heavenly demons from the ancient demon race. Speaking of which, we can be considered your ancestors." "That's right." Old monster Huang Quan continued with a face full of grief and indignation. "Back then, in the ancient times, the 2 of us fought against those despicable humans who betrayed us. When we fought for a chance of survival for our demon clan, we were suppressed here by someone behind the scenes. It's been a full 100,000 years. If the 2 of us hadn't been plotted against back then and joined the battle against the humans would have definitely been defeated," Patriarch Tian Silkworm said without hesitation. The 2 old monsters who had survived from the ancient times spoke one after another, describing their image as incomparably fearless and extremely brave, as if they were heroes of the demon clan. Their image was incomparably lofty. Their great achievements were enough to prove the sun and moon. When Tion heard this, his expression didn't change at all, but he sneered in his heart. If Ziyue hadn't told him what kind of characters were suppressed back then, he might have been confused by their vivid narration. Although he hadn't seen what happened back then with his own eyes, he didn't even need to think about who to believe between Ziyue and these 2 old monsters. Now, he could only watch coldly as the 2 old monsters argued with each other. "You want me to let you out?" Tion said indifferently. He glanced at the mountain and the full moon in the sky. "That's right. That's right. That's right." Patriarch Tion Silkworm raised his eyebrows and said excitedly, "You are Ziue's chosen successor. We had a good relationship with her back then. Hurry up and let us out. Once we're out of this cage, this old ancestor has endless benefits to give you." My celestial silkworm 9 transformations was a top cultivation method in the ancient times. Once you help me out, I'll teach you this method. How about it? I'll also give you a treasure. I guarantee your strength will increase greatly. That's right. My Huang Quan Soul refinement method is also a top cultivation method. If you want it, I'll teach it to you when I'm free. The 2 old monsters kept promising endless benefits and all kinds of treasures. It was so tempting that even immortals would be tempted. At this moment, they seemed to have turned into demons, wholeheartedly tempting Tion so that he would open the seal and let them go. This lie was full of flaws. Tion shook his head and sneered inside. He didn't need to think at all to see through the loopholes in the 2 old monsters' words. They wanted to fool him with this little bit of benefits? What a joke. Not only did he want the promised benefits, but he also didn't want to let the 2 old monsters off the hook. Wanting to tease the 2 old monsters, he said in a mocking tone, "Old monster Huang Quan and Patriarch Tion Silkworm, I've heard of you before. It said that during the Great War between the human race and the monster race, you planned to go into seclusion to avoid responsibility. Later, you were captured by Ziue and imprisoned in the heavenly monster mystic realm. Since when did you become great heroes of the monster race?" Ugh. The 2 old monsters who were still promising endless benefits couldn't help but pause at the same time. Old monsters who had lived for so many years were no fools. They immediately realized that they had been tricked by this little monster. "Oomph. So you knew all about it. How dare you lie to us? You're courting death." Even old ancestor Tion Silkworm's snow-white beard stood up. His eyes widened in anger as a boundless aura surged out from his body and pressed down on Sakura like a landslide. Boom, boom, boom. Tion only felt that the space around him suddenly solidified. Then, a pressure even more terrifying than when he was on the stairway to heaven fell on him. It was as if the sky was falling. There was a terrible roar in the air, and in an instant he felt as if all the bones in his body were being crushed. The soil under his feet couldn't bear it and swallowed his feet. His entire body kept sinking into the ground. He was actually being pressed into the ground. Since the temptation didn't work, he immediately began to threaten, using force to suppress. With the terrifying aura of the heavenly monster, it exerted pressure on Tion, a mere ancient monster king. It was like an elephant trying to trample an ant to death. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 503. Roar. Indra Tianhu's eyes flashed with radiance. He didn't dodge at all as he stared at old ancestor Tion Silkworm. The black hair behind his head danced crazily like a demon god. The muscles under his black robe were undulating like a dragon. He opened his mouth and let out a domineering tiger roar. The way of the emperor, the absolute supremacy. The body of the emperor, the prestige of the world. All lands belong to the emperor, and all are the emperor's subjects. Those who follow me prosper, those who defy me perish. The heavens cannot bury me, and the earth cannot bury me. Boom, boom, boom. Tian's extreme Emperor world-shocking book was activated to the maximum. In his mind, the general outline of the way of the emperor appeared like a tide. In an instant, his aura surged wildly. The emperor's aura of supremacy whizzed out and soared into the sky like billowing smoke signals. It was domineering, noble, and mighty. A vast and boundless aura spread out. Everywhere it went, it was like the ruler of the world. His body glowed and expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom, boom, boom. His body shook the void as he grew rapidly. 100 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet. In the blink of an eye, his body expanded to 500 feet. As his body expanded, he released all of his power. The terrifying pressure shook the surrounding space, and he broke free from the restraint of Patriarch Tion Silkworm's aura. Instead, a majestic aura pressed against Tion's silkworm. Patriarch Tion Silkworm, an ancient giant. Humph, do you really think I'm afraid of you just because you're an ancient giant? Tian's body grew to 500 feet, and his eyes were as big as bronze bells. The candlelight flickered, and he exuded a domineering aura. He formed the extreme Empyrean seal in his hand, and a majestic aura gathered instantly. It made him look even more majestic, like a demon standing proudly in the sky. The purple gold mask had a hint of coldness. He looked coldly at Tion's silkworm and said, I could survive the attack of an ancient giant that day. You think you can scare me with your powerful aura? The aura of a unique and righteous shrouded Shao Chen's body, blocking the heavenly silkworm's aura. It was unable to suppress him. Sky's silkworm Ancestor's expression drastically changed as he stared at Sakura in disbelief. Strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. That's right, Sakura was indeed strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. His cultivation base and demonic chi had almost been completely depleted in the past 100,000 years. Furthermore, he couldn't absorb the energy of heaven and earth from the outside world to replenish his cultivation base. Right now, even his inner world had withered, becoming incomparably desolate. Even so, with his heavenly demon aura, any ordinary ancient demon king would have been crushed to the ground with just a push of his heavenly demon aura. It trembled incessantly. To think that it was actually able to break free. The aura it emitted was actually able to block it. This was simply inconceivable. Only a great demon would have such a possibility. I, the unique and righteous, the Emperor's Qi. You actually cultivate the Tao of the Emperor. When old monster Huang Quan saw this, he was speechless. He could not believe that the junior in front of him could cultivate the way of the Emperor to such a level. One should know that among all the great Taos in the world, the most difficult one to cultivate was the way of the Emperor. First of all, one had to be born with the Emperor's Qi and possess an astonishing Emperor's secret art. More importantly, one had to be a king. The most important thing was the Emperor's secret art. Even in the ancient times, no one had been able to cultivate the way of the Emperor to its peak. There was no supreme Emperor's secret art that had ever appeared. What kind of cultivation technique did he learn? To be able to cultivate such overbearing Emperor's Qi at the Demon King realm. It's comparable to the Emperor's Qi of the ancient times. Huang Quan was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. It was a little too unbelievable that a Demon King could withstand the pressure of a heavenly demon. That's impossible, Sky's silkworm Ancestor exclaimed. Nothing is impossible, Yi Zichen said. Tion said coldly, although you are heavenly demons, the energy in your body has withered. Under the suppression of the two supreme treasures of the purple moon, you can't absorb any energy to replenish yourselves. After 100,000 years of continuous suppression, you are already at the end of your rope. You want to suppress me with your weak bow? If you can't break out of the cage, given your exhausted energy and empty condition, the 5 decays of the celestial being will immediately descend. At that time, given your current situation, you will inevitably die under the 5 decays of the celestial being. Huang Quan and Sky's silkworm Ancestor's faces changed at the same time. Their faces became very unsightly. Obviously, Tian's words had hit their sore spot. A good opportunity. Nether almost jumped up in excitement in the Nether prison. 2 heavenly demons. If it were in the ancient times, ordinary people wouldn't be able to subdue them. Now is the time when they are at their weakest. This is the only chance to subdue them. If you have 2 heavenly demons by your side, it will be of great benefit to you in the future. Heavenly demons, even if their energy was exhausted and their foundation was almost damaged, were still heavenly demons. As long as they recovered, they would be the top fighting force below the peerless experts. At the thought of being able to subdue heavenly demons, Nether's excitement reached its limit. His eyes widened as he cried out, "Lunatic D, I'll tell you a set of enslavement mystic arts. This mystic arts is my master's proud work. In the ancient times, my master defeated all the ancient giants who offended him and subdued them with this mystic arts. They were loyal to him, and none of them dared to rebel. I'll teach it to you. When the time comes, you can trick those two old farts. They certainly won't expect you to have this mystic arts." His words were full of pride. At the same time, Tion felt a large amount of information rush into his mind, allowing him to instantly understand the essence of the mystic arts. Although the mystic arts were incomparably magical, it wasn't too complicated to perform. It was called the 100 Generations Slave Seal. As the name implied, if the 100 Generations Slave Seal fell on one's body, even if one reincarnated 100 times, they wouldn't be able to wash off the seal. They would forever be the slave of the owner of the seal, and they wouldn't have the slightest intention of rebelling. This set of slave seals was one of the mystic arts that could be used on ancient giants. It was very profound. It had never been spread out. Only Nether. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to obtain it. Good. Nether immediately began to condense the 100 Generations Slave Seal. Tion couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, what kind of existence were heavenly demons? He already had a rough impression of how terrifying a heavenly demon could be if he couldn't withstand it once. If he were to let these two old monsters out easily, with their cowardly nature of bullying the weak and fearing the strong in the ancient times, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to restrain them. At that time, it would be a thankless task. In fact, he was also very nervous about whether to let them go or not. It was hard to decide. Now that he had this set of slave seals, a plan immediately appeared in Tion's mind. He immediately snorted and said, "I know the way to let you out, but it's very simple if you want me to let you out." He paused, glanced at Huang Quan and Tian Can, and said majestically, "Submit to me." At the same time, Nether also condensed the 100 Generations Slave Seal in the Heaven Punishment Divine Eye, extracting the soul, blood essence, and even the power of the Heaven Punishment Divine Eye from Tion's body. The power of desire fused together to condense the 100 Generations Slave Seal that belonged to Tion. Once it was imprinted on someone, they would immediately not be able to escape his control. From now on, even their lives would be completely connected to him. If the master died, the servant would die. What? You want us two heavenly demons to submit to a junior like you? You're dreaming. When Tion Patriarch heard this, his eyes narrowed and he almost jumped up. He blew his beard and widened his eyes. Asking a heavenly demon to be loyal to a little demon king was simply a joke. Okay, we'll submit. However, Huang Quan rolled his eyes and said something completely different for what Tion Patriarch said. "Acheron, you old monster, have you gone mad? A dignified heavenly Yao is actually going to submit to a puny Yao king. If news of this were to spread, we won't be able to see anyone in the future. We'll just drill into the ground." Tion cursed. Although he liked to bully the weak and fear the strong, he seemed to be particularly persistent in this matter. When the Yellow Spring saw this, he suddenly used his divine sense to transmit a message. "Celestial Worm, you're the one who's stupid. You want face, but do you think I don't want face? Submitting to a demon king is something I can't do. However, don't forget, if our 5 decay of the celestial being continues like this, I'm afraid it won't even take 1,000 years before it descends. You're the one with the most schemes. Do you have any ideas? Tell me, tell me." Tion can also communicated with divine thought and asked anxiously, TSK, have you lost your mind from anger? Although the two of us have fallen to such a state and our strength is almost completely exhausted, don't forget that our realms, our bodies, and our primordial spirits are all heavenly demons. As long as we submit now and wait for him to rescue us, with our realms and identities, we can directly turn hostile. How can a mere demon king restrain us, two heavenly demons? That's right. In ancient times, there were indeed secret techniques that could restrain us heavenly demons. However, Such secret techniques were precious in ancient times and were not passed down. That crazy woman Ziyue wouldn't know. Even if this brat obtained Ziyue's inheritance, he wouldn't know such a secret technique. Without such a supreme secret technique, the other secret techniques won't be able to restrain us. Once we trick him into opening the seal, we'll be able to do whatever we want. Tian can immediately understood and laughed strangely. He seemed to have seen the time to escape. These were all communicated through divine thought. The time it happened was only a flash. In the eyes of outsiders, they just looked at each other. Suddenly, they said in unison, "Okay, as long as you save us, we'll submit to you." This sudden change naturally fell into Di Shirtian's eyes. How could he not figure out that they must have a plan and there must be some conspiracy behind it? However, he was not afraid at all. He sneered inwardly. "No matter what trump card you have, as long as I send this 100-generation slave seal into your body, no matter how many tricks you have, you can only submit to me." If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 504. Di Shirtian wouldn't feel at ease if the two old monsters were to swear an oath. Although oaths were extremely serious in this world filled with immortals and Buddhas, they were usually effective. No matter who it was, they wouldn't easily make an oath. Once it came true, it was no laughing matter. After breaking the oath, there would be a heavenly tribulation, and the heavenly punishment would directly blast you into ashes. However, these two old monsters were experts in the heavenly demon realm. They had already made a name for themselves in the ancient times. Now, under the suppression of the purple moon, they still managed to hold on for 100,000 years without being obliterated. It could be seen that the old monsters in that realm couldn't be judged with common sense. No one knew if they had any powerful means in their hands. It was terrifying to be out of the control of the oath. This wasn't safe. Sakura didn't want to be remembered by these two old monsters who were once heavenly demons every day. Once he betrayed them, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. What's more, these two monsters already had a history as early as in ancient times. At the moment when their race was facing extinction, they still wanted to hide. With such temperament, how could he believe their oath? Only when he truly had them in his hands, and under the premise that they would never betray him, would he dare to release them from the seal. Otherwise, no matter what they said, he would immediately turn and leave. If it wasn't for Ming's skill and the secret technique of the 100-generation slave seal, he wouldn't have spent so much effort on this. He would rather let these two old monsters die from the 5 decay of heaven and man than release these two terrifying fellows. The 100 generations slave seal, once it was branded on the other party, the power of the seal would constantly transmit thoughts of loyalty to the master into the other party's mind, constantly changing the other party's will. The memories wouldn't change, but it would make them unwaveringly loyal to the master. Once they had any thoughts of betrayal, the power of the seal would immediately make them experience an unforgettable pain for the rest of their lives. If they were loyal and devoted, the seal wouldn't harm them. Instead, it would allow the servant to inherit a divine ability that belonged to the master. It would also allow the servant to obtain great benefits as the master's strength increased. It wasn't just slavery. It also had great benefits. However, as the saying goes, if the master is humiliated, the servant will die. Once the master died, the servant would also not be able to survive and would die with him. However, if the servant died, the master would not suffer any damage, but the servant would be able to retain a strand of his soul. As long as he paid a certain price, he could still be resurrected and reconstruct his true body. In short, once the slave seal landed on a person's body, the person's life would have an inseparable connection with the owner of the slave seal. I can't get rid of it anymore. Lunatic D, the 100-generation slave seal has been successfully refined, but I want to take a drop of your blood, fuse with the slave seal, and make you the master of the slave seal. At this moment, Ming had finished refining the two slave seals. The slave seals were in the form of a grayish, chaotic fog. They seemed to have no form and were constantly churning. All right, Tion agreed without hesitation. With a thought, he forced out 2 drops of faint golden blood from his heart. That was the hot blood of his heart. Every drop of essence blood was very precious. If it was damaged, it would greatly damage one's vitality. Ordinary cultivators would need to recuperate for at least 10 to 20 years to recover. However, he had consumed the source of life, so the life force in his body was very strong. This little bit of damage was still bearable. As soon as the 2 drops of essence blood fell into the 2 clouds of fog, countless divine lights intertwined in the fog, giving off a mysterious aura. They quickly gathered in the middle and condensed into 2 strange beads. The beads were grayish, and no color could be seen. However, they emitted a vast and ancient aura. They were extremely mysterious. As soon as the 100-generation slave seal was successfully refined, Tion felt a mysterious connection with the 2 beads. He couldn't help but be secretly happy. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in the blink of an eye. It was as if he was pondering for a moment after Huang Quan and the others said that they wanted to submit. A divine light flashed in his eyes as he glanced at the 2 monsters in front of him and said, "All right, since you are willing to submit to this king, I, Tion, am not a stingy person. In the future, as long as there is something for me, there will naturally be something for you. However, for the sake of peace, please accept these 2 little things. Otherwise, I won't dare to let you out rashly." He said this in a casual tone. At the same time, the purple mark between his eyebrows flashed. The 2 strange beads formed by the 100 generations slave seal flew out and imprinted between the 2 old monsters' eyebrows at a slow speed. The speed was not fast. If Huang Quan and Tian wanted to resist, they would have enough time to react. This was also Tian's test. Huang Quan and Tian looked at each other and couldn't help but see a mocking sneer in each other's eyes. They knew that he would definitely use some method to put some bullsh *T restriction in our bodies. However, what kind of powerful restriction could a little demon king know? With just this little bit of knowledge, he wants to control us sky demons. What a joke. I'll let you do it now and temporarily pretend that you are under the restriction. I'll show you in the future. The 2 old monsters were very disdainful of Tian's method in their hearts. They didn't think that there was any powerful restriction in the hands of this junior that could do anything to them. After the strange beads flying over, they didn't reject them at all. They didn't resist or dodge at all. They were still thinking about how to deal with Tian after they went out and recovered in the future. Puff, puff. As soon as the 2 slave seals touched between their eyebrows, they immediately broke open a hole and directly embedded in it. At the same time, as soon as they touched their blood, the entire slave seal instantly spread to their whole body like a parasite. Their flesh, blood, and primordial spirits were instantly covered. Their primordial spirits were bound. Ah, ah. 2 blood-curdling screams rang out at the same time. There was an inexplicable fear in the screams. The 100 generations slave seal. This is the unique 100 generations slave seal of the Emperor of the Underworld in ancient times. How is it possible? How can this be the 100 generations slave seal? Oh my God, it's over, it's completely over. Patriarch Tian Silkworm screamed with a sobbing tone. His face was about to turn bitter. I'm despicable. I'm really despicable. Why did I take this thing? I regret it. It's all over this time. Huang Quan, you bastard, it's all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been put with this damned 100 generations slave seal. Tian Silkworm, you're so hateful. How did I know that this kid would know about the 100 generations slave seal? Damn it, this slave seal, even in ancient times, no one knew about it. It's the Emperor of the Underworld's unique secret technique. How did it get passed down? It's over. Patriarch Tian Silkworm also had a mournful face. Since the slave seal entered their bodies with their knowledge, how could they not know what it was? They were so scared that their souls almost jumped out of their bodies. This thing was famous for being difficult to deal with in ancient times. The key was that in order for the slave seal to enter the body, the target must first not resist and have no thoughts of resistance. Only then would it succeed. Originally, the two of them thought that it was just an ordinary seal. They even looked at it coldly and fearlessly guided it into their bodies. Patriarch Tion Silkworm really wanted to slap himself in the face. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm so unlucky. When did this unlucky kid become me? The moment the thought of rebelling appeared in their minds, an irresistible pain immediately came from their bodies and even their primordial spirits. That kind of pain was simply unbearable. Even the heavenly demons couldn't resist it and screamed in pain. With their status as heavenly demons, how could they easily submit? The moment the thought of rebelling appeared in their minds, they immediately suffered the backlash of the 100-generation slave seal. Screams of agony resounded in the air. Their bodies were covered in cold sweat. Even their faces were twisted in pain. In their hearts, they almost wanted to commit suicide. This 100-generation slave seal is really powerful. When Tion saw that even the heavenly demons couldn't help but cry out in pain, he couldn't help but be shocked by the terror of the 100-generation slave seal. Of course it's powerful. This 100-generation slave seal contains all kinds of terrifying punishments. One of them is a terrifying innate ability of the scorpion tribe, poisonous hitching post. That poisonous hitching post isn't something that anyone can withstand. It's said that even an unparalleled expert would suffer unbearable pain. So what if you're a heavenly demon? You can't withstand it. Ming shouted proudly. Poisonous hitching post. Tion couldn't help but gasp. That was really vicious. This thing was no joke. Even the golden body couldn't withstand it. Once one was pierced, it would be so painful that even tears would fall out. Even Buddha couldn't do anything about it. When he looked at the two old monsters, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of sympathy. Huang Quan, Tion, with a thought, Sakura's body shrunk in an instant, turning from a giant to a normal size. He stood proudly in front of the two old monsters and said in a deep voice, "Once the century slave imprint enters the body, it can't be removed for life. The more you resist, the heavier the pain you will suffer. As long as you are loyal to me, you will benefit greatly in the future. Why resist? You resist for the sake of your dignity as heavenly demons. Let me tell you, sooner or later, I will become a heavenly demon. I have the confidence to reach the peak and become an unparalleled expert. I rose from nothing. 20 years ago, I was just an ordinary tiger in the secular mountain range. Now, in just a short period of time, I have become a demon king. Who can say that I won't become a heavenly demon in 1,000 years? 10,000 years later, I won't become an unparalleled expert. I created the Emperor Path Absolute Art, Imperial World Shocking Book. Once the book is completed, heaven and earth will weep and ghosts will be frightened. If I can't reach the peak, who would dare to? Confidence, arrogance. Tion looked at the void proudly, his body exuding a powerful supreme aura. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 505. That was asking the heavens. That was asking the heart. Sakura had pride and confidence that had never disappeared. Even if he rose up from nothing, so what? He had great opportunities and great luck. He could even integrate the power of desire into his body. He could even create the Emperor's wondrous book and obtain the heavenly demon's inheritance. Now, he even had millions of demons under his command. He believed that there wouldn't be any problems for him to climb the heavenly demon's throne. It was just a matter of time. Plus, the Linglong Treasure Pagoda could reverse time and space. Now that he had so many supreme treasures on him, if he did not have the qualifications to climb to the top, he would not hesitate to find a piece of tofu and kill himself. Everything was the source of his confidence. He had worked hard with his own hands, self-created cultivation technique, and reached the Demon King realm in less than 20 years. Rising from nothing. It was unknown when Huang Quan and Tian Can's screams had stopped. Hearing Sakura's narration, their faces couldn't help but reveal a dazed expression. That trace of shock couldn't be concealed no matter what. A self-created cultivation technique and an Emperor Dao absolute art at that. What did that mean? How could these old monsters who had become heaven demons not understand? With his self-created cultivation techniques realm, there was no bottleneck in his understanding of the cultivation technique. This was because this cultivation method was created by him. In terms of understanding of cultivation methods, almost no one would be able to reach the height of the cultivation method's owner. With such a thorough understanding, was there any hurdle that was almost unobstructed? Every person who could create an amazing cultivation technique was an expert who had the qualifications to climb to the top. That kind of potential was the most amazing and terrifying. It was tantamount to opening up a new path. The two old monsters, Tian Can and Huang Quan, looked at each other and saw a trace of shock and a trace of resignation in each other's eyes. They took a deep breath, lowered their heads, and said in unison, "Huang Quan, Tian Can, greet our master." They had no choice but to submit. They had experienced the century slave seal. It was too terrifying. The kind of pain that penetrated into the bone marrow was simply unbearable. Remove it? That was simply unthinkable. In ancient times, people had attempted to do so. Unfortunately, the century slave seal was something that even the most powerful experts in the world couldn't forcibly remove. Unless it was an eternally indestructible paragon who was above the most powerful experts in the world. Eternal and indestructible? Damn, Tian Can and Huang Quan were not arrogant enough to think that they could invite such an existence. Even if they could, would they be able to find them? Such existences could be counted on one's fingers. Moreover, no one knew where they were. It was impossible to find them even if they wanted to. Since they couldn't remove it, they couldn't even commit suicide. No, they couldn't bear to commit suicide. Even if they committed suicide, the slave imprint would follow them through reincarnation. They couldn't get rid of it. If he wanted to resist, he would only be looking for trouble. The two of them had always been afraid of death. They really didn't want to go through this kind of pain again. At this point, there was nothing he could do. The only path that lay before him was already very clear. When he thought about Di Shitian's future potential, he might not look down on the two of them. Naturally, there was nothing much to say. They could only lower their heads and submit. Good, good, good. When Di Shitian heard that, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Don't worry. Since you've submitted, you're on my side. Although the slave imprint imprisons your freedom, it will also give you benefits. Each of you will receive one of my innate abilities." With that in mind, he immediately broke through one of the restrictions within the slave seal. Suddenly, a light golden vertical mark appeared between the eyebrows of Huang Quan and Tian Can. The golden mark slowly opened, and a vertical eye grew on their foreheads. It was somewhat similar to Di Shitian's eye of heaven's punishment, but the vertical eye was golden. It seemed that its power was amazing. A divine light shot out from Huang Quan's vertical eye. In the divine light, there seemed to be a kind of terrible power that could pull people's divine souls out. Although it was not as domineering as Di Shitian's eye of heaven's punishment, it still had an irresistible power. However, Tian Can's vertical eye could see through all illusions. No illusion could confuse his eyes. This newly born eye actually contains the ability to absorb souls. What a tyrannical divine ability. It can actually increase along with my strength. What a shocking divine ability. Could it be the legendary eye of soul shaking? Old monster Huang Quan's eyes almost narrowed in joy. He was the happiest about the ability to absorb souls. My eyes can see through illusions. No illusion can confuse me. I can see through the worlds of yin and yang. Could this divine ability be the legendary delusion breaker divine eye? Tian Can also cried out in joy. Obviously, he was very happy about the ability he got. Both of them didn't expect that after they became slaves, they would be rewarded with such amazing and magical abilities. They were also secretly excited. The grudge in their hearts about acknowledging Di Shirtion as their master was reduced a lot. With these two abilities, their strength would increase by more than half in an instant. Thank you, Master. Master, for your generous gift. Huang Quan was not used to it. He was still not used to calling a Monster King master. Di Shirtion didn't pay much attention to it. He suddenly closed his eyes and was silent for a while. Then, he suddenly opened his eyes. His hands quickly pulled out countless afterimages in front of him, and in an instant, he condensed a strange and mysterious seal and threw it at the 5 elements mountain and the cold light mirror that were suppressing the 2 monsters. Withdraw. The seal was thrown into the 2 treasures. Suddenly, the 5 elements mountain and the cold light mirror trembled violently at the same time. On them, divine light flickered, and there was a huge change. The purple moon in the sky quickly shrank and turned into a purple ancient mirror. On the edge of the ancient mirror, there were countless mysterious patterns. The 5 elements mountain suddenly rose from the ground and quickly shrank in the air until it was only the size of a palm. The 5 elements divine light on the mountain constantly rotated, looking very mysterious. Seeing these 2 treasures, Di Shirtion naturally wanted to keep them in his bag. After all, a treasure that could suppress a heavenly monster was definitely not a simple treasure. It should be known that Ziyue was said to have the prestige closest to a peerless master. She was only half a step away from the peak. The power of the treasures she left behind could be imagined. He used the treasure withdrawal technique to keep them. Buzz. However, immediately, Di Shirtion's expression was a little strange. The treasure withdrawal technique was useless. The 2 treasures made a strange sound and flew back and forth a few times around Di Shirtion. Then, they directly turned into 2 divine lights and broke through the sky. They directly left the Linglong treasure pagoda and disappeared in front of him. How could this be? Di Shirtion's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. Could it be that Ziyue is really not dead, and these 2 treasures have returned to Ziyue? In his mind, almost instantly, a question that had been hovering in the bottom of his heart for a long time appeared. It had been buried deep in the bottom of his heart, but the moment he saw the treasures fly away, it could not help but resurface again. Master, you don't have to look anymore. That crazy woman Ziyue must have taken back those 2 treasures. With her reputation as the number 1 monster below the peerless masters, she must have set up a backup plan. In these years, she has already reincarnated. Maybe she has already cultivated back to the heavenly monster realm. That crazy woman is too scary. When she goes crazy, no one can control her. Huang Quan saw the 2 treasures fly away and then looked at Di Shirtion's puzzled and contemplative expression. How could he not know what he was thinking? He could not help but grumble a little unhappily. I heard that Ziyue cultivated a mysterious cultivation method. I don't know where she got it from. It is said that she once divided her divine soul into 9 and put it into reincarnation. She used the power of reincarnation to repair the incomplete divine soul. When 9 become 1, she can directly step into the realm of peerless masters. This woman is too crazy. Back in ancient times, who did not tremble with fear when they heard the name of Ziyue, Heavenly Maiden. It is not an easy thing to kill her. I am sure that she must be somewhere at this moment. At this moment, when Tian can mention Ziyue, there is still a trace of fear on his face. Obviously, he was really scared by Ziyue's suppression here. The suppressed treasures flew away. Naturally, Huang Quan and Tian can broke free and came in front of Di Shirtion. However, they looked quite dispirited. Obviously, their bodies had reached their limits. All their cultivation had been obliterated and dried up to an unimaginably terrible state. How are the 2 of you now? What kind of cultivation strength can you have? Di Shirtion took a deep breath and put aside the matter of Ziyue for the time being. It was not something he could interfere in. This question immediately made Huang Quan and Tian can smile bitterly. This time, I've been suppressed by Ziyue for 100,000 years. During the suppression, Not only can I not replenish the power of heaven and earth, but my cultivation will also be constantly obliterated by the two treasures. Now my inner world is completely dried up. The spiritual items in it have also withered. My entire inner world is constantly shrinking. Now, it is only 100 feet in size. The spiritual chi inside is also exhausted. My divine soul has also suffered great damage. Without at least 5,000 years, it will be impossible to recover from these injuries. Back in the day, my inner world was as big as a minor kiliocosm. If I want to recover, it will be difficult without tens of thousands of years. Tian Patriarch said bitterly. Huang Quan had the same expression. The two of them were basically the same. Their situation was not much better. The other injuries were still manageable. The key was that the demon vein, demon mansion, and even the most important inner world and divine soul in their bodies had suffered unimaginable damage. They had almost reached the stage of exhaustion. Even the 5 decay of heaven and man was about to descend. It could be seen how miserable they were. Now, the two of them were simply strong in appearance, but weak in reality. Only their cultivation realm was still there. Everything else was gone. In a desperate situation, they might still be able to compete with the great demon. As for the rest, they could not count on it. However, fortunately, Tian did not have much hope for them at all. After being suppressed for so many years, the situation had long been obvious. However, the skills they were best at made him very happy. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 506. For Huang Quan and Ancestor Tian Silkworm to be able to cultivate to heavenly Fae in the ancient times, their potential was unimaginably high. No fool could reach such heights. Naturally, those who could reach such heights had their own areas of expertise in cultivation. Ancestor Tian Silkworm was a shapeless snow silkworm. He had the ability to turn himself invisible from birth. Once he concealed himself, it was almost impossible to find him. Moreover, he had very few natural enemies. He was born with spiritual intelligence and knew how to seek fortune and avoid calamity. He had lived for 10,000 years before he experienced a heavenly tribulation and gained human form. Later on, with his enormous accumulation, he advanced by leaps and bounds. In a short 30,000 years, he broke through to the heavenly Fae realm. His favorite thing was to refine all kinds of treasures and treasures. He was a rare master refiner in the ancient times. In his life, he had refined all kinds of treasures and treasures. He especially liked to imitate powerful, innate spiritual treasures. Moreover, he could imitate 20 to 30% of the original's power. This ability could be said to be second to none. It was unknown how many experts had begged him to refine treasures for them. Furthermore, he had a rule in the past. When others asked him to refine treasures for them, they had to prepare an extra set of materials. One set would be used to refine the treasure, while the other would be his reward. Back then, with this, he had accumulated countless treasures. He was so rich that the eyes of those unparalleled experts glowed. That crazy woman Ziwa robbed me. It was pure robbery. Not only did she imprison me here, but she also took away most of my treasures. She's really King ruthless. When Tian Silkworm thought of the scene back then, the muscles on his face began to twitch uncontrollably. His pained expression was obvious to all. Back then, when I was in the secret zone, I entered the treasury left behind by ZU. There were 3 levels of the treasury, and each level contained a huge amount of rare treasures. Could it be that most of those rare treasures were taken from him? Hearing Tian Silkworm's pained expression, Tian couldn't help but recall the scene he saw back then. Huang Quan was also extraordinary. His skills and formations were outstanding. In the ancient times, he was also a famous formation master. Back then, he had refined hundreds of formation diagrams. It was no exaggeration to say that this guy, with his cultivation and formations, even unparalleled experts didn't want to find trouble with him. Unfortunately, he met Ziyue. He was stunned and suppressed here. Tian couldn't help but be secretly delighted when he heard their respective skills. It was as if someone had delivered a pillow to him when he was sleepy. How could he not use these skills to the extreme? He immediately said, Huang Quan, Tian Silkworm, look at this ancient city. Tian immediately threw 2 identical jade slips to the 2 old monsters. After receiving them, the 2 old monsters immediately probed inside with their demon consciousness. In an instant, they looked up at Tian at the same time and said with great surprise, wasn't this built by Tian Jizi, that old guy who spent countless efforts to fuse several kinds of magical, innate spirit treasures in the world together? He said that if it could be built, it would be the divine city among the divine cities in the heavens, the number 1 ancient city among the emperors of the ancient cities. Master, could it be that you want to build this ancient city? Huang Quan gasped and said with horror in his eyes, this is almost impossible. Tian Silkworm's snow-white head shook like a rattledrum. He said repeatedly, in the ancient times, Tian Jizi and I were life-and-death friends. When he thought about building this ancient city, the first person he looked for was me. At that time, he was scolded by me. It was almost impossible to build it successfully. Just the materials needed to build the city alone don't belong to the 5 elements. It's not that there are no materials outside the 5 elements, but each of them is extremely rare. It's impossible to meet the requirements of building a city. This point alone is enough to make this ancient city a legend. What's more, the other materials all require innate spirit treasures. Such treasures are in the 9 great forbidden lands. Even the peerless masters don't dare to touch them easily. He was a master craftsman, so he naturally had deep attainments in building a city. He had long known the difficulties of building this ancient city. It's not impossible, but I've already built the city long ago. I've also solved the problem of materials outside the 5 elements. It's no longer a problem. Look, Tian waved his hand, and a crystal-like divine crystal appeared in front of him. Tian Silkworm immediately took it and carefully examined it. With this look, the surprise in his heart couldn't help but surge like a wave. It's really not in the 5 elements. It doesn't have the slightest power of the 5 elements. What material is this? Why haven't I seen it before? No, how can there be power of will in it? Strange, really strange. In the blink of an eye, it was confirmed that this divine crystal was indeed a treasure outside the 5 elements. Seeing their shocked expressions, Tian wanted to strengthen a sense of mystery in their hearts, so that they could sincerely submit as soon as possible. After briefly explaining the origin of the divine crystal, he continued, now, we've already found the materials to build the 1,000-demon city, but it's not so easy to obtain natural spirit treasures, especially the 4 gates of heaven. Originally, I planned to build 4 walls to temporarily replace the gates of heaven. But now, since Tian is a grandmaster artificer, and you've even created all kinds of natural spirit treasures, it's not that easy to obtain. I don't know if you can imitate these 4 heavenly gates. We'll temporarily replace the real ones with the fake ones. Tian Silkworm's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He suddenly said, back then, this old servant had personally entered the forbidden land where the 4 heavenly gates were hidden. Although it was only the periphery, I personally felt the unique power of the heavenly gates. However, it was not an easy task to replicate it. The materials needed must be unique and are innate spirit treasures. It's extremely difficult to find all of them. Moreover, even if it's imitated, the strongest power of the fake heavenly gates can only resist the ancient giants, venerable level powerhouses. I'm afraid it won't be able to defeat the peerless powerhouses. All right, as long as you can refine it, it's fine. I'll be responsible for finding the materials. A glint flashed in Sakura's eyes. A fake would always be a fake. No matter what, it couldn't be compared to a real innate spiritual treasure. To be able to possess a fake that could resist an ancient giant was already pretty good. He turned to look at the Huang Quan Holy River and the heavenly Inyang Bridge in the distance, and asked, how do we collect this Huang Quan Holy River and the heavenly Inyang Bridge? This when Huang Quan and Tian Silkworm heard this, they immediately became hesitant. They hesitated and said, "Master, actually, this Huang Quan holy river is Huang Quan's natal magic treasure, and this heavenly Yinyang bridge is this old servant's imitation of a legendary innate spirit treasure. The Bridge of Helplessness. It's a natal magic treasure refined by me. Back then, I was captured by Ziyue and placed here." When Di Shirtian heard this, he didn't look too surprised. In fact, when he saw the two of them, he already had a rough guess in his heart. He shook his head slightly and said, "Since it's your natal magic treasure, you can take it back. Also, each of you can take one of the things inside. I believe it will be of some help to you to recover from your injuries and suppress the Deva's 5 decay." After that, he waved his hand, and a jade box flew toward them. He also turned and left. His plan for the God's Fall Abyss required the cooperation of the heavenly Yinyang Bridge. If it were any other time, he would naturally find a way to spend a lot of effort to subdue that treasure. However, at this moment, since it was the natal magic treasure of Tian Silkworm and Huang Quan, with their current status, they would accept the lifetime slave seal, which meant that they would never betray their master. It was naturally easy to borrow the heavenly Yinyang Bridge. Pa! Seeing Di Shirtian leave the fourth heaven, the two old monsters looked at his back with a complicated expression. Then they opened the jade box. Although they didn't think that there would be any good healing elixirs in it, after all, it was a kind gesture. However, when the jade box was opened, the two pairs of eyes opened wide at the same time when they saw the things in the box. Seed of Life. 2 jade green seeds that looked like gemstones were lying in the box. The rich aura of life hit him in the face. However, the two of them had extremely complicated expressions on their faces. It seems that the master we follow is not a simple person. I'm afraid that he really has great luck. The moment they saw the 2 bells of life, the conflict in their hearts disappeared by more than half. This kind of treasure was rare, even in ancient times. The fact that it was given to them so casually showed that they were grateful. A real sense of belonging was born. After leaving the 4th heaven, they went down to the 2nd heaven. Here, the incomparably huge, ancient city was placed in front of them. Millions of demons were in full swing building the ancient city. There was a clear division of labor. Cubes of condensed high-grade divine crystals were placed in order into the ancient city frame formed by the membrane of heaven and earth. A 7 orifices exquisite pot that was dozens of feet tall stood in the center. Beside it, there were strong men of the Ox tribe who were constantly pouring piles of spiritual materials and ores into the pot. The mountain-like materials instantly turned into a magical liquid and poured out of the pot into the modules, forming cubes of divine crystals used to build the city. Once the divine crystals were formed, the demons immediately moved the divine crystals away and placed them in the membrane of the ancient city. Little by little, the illusory ancient city became real. It became real. There were also groups of demons carving all kinds of mysterious patterns on the divine crystals. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. Di Shirtian saw this and nodded to himself. After the construction site was placed in the 2nd heaven, the construction speed had increased by dozens of times. It was also a gratifying situation. Reporting to my king, who came over and bowed. What's the matter? Reporting to my king, the Blood Dragon King has just arrived in the southern wilderness with his subordinates. Bai Su is leading them to the Myriad Demon Valley. They're finally here. When Di Shirtian heard this, his eyes flashed. Calculating the time, the 8 demon kings should be arriving soon. He nodded and said, "I'll go out now and welcome them personally." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his long sleeve and walked out of the exquisite pagoda. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 507. The 8 Great Demon Kings. Each one of them was an expert who had been famous for thousands of years. Their status was something that every new Demon Clan member had to look up to. Of course, with the exception of Sakura, this monster, whose cultivation speed was unbelievably fast. In just a few decades, he had already reached the ancient Demon King realm and was on equal footing with them. However, there should still be the most basic respect between each other. It was also reasonable for D. Shirtion to personally go out to greet them. Coming out of the exquisite pagoda, with a wave of his hand, the divine light outside the pagoda disappeared. The entire pagoda became simple and ordinary, like an ordinary pagoda, which would not attract too much attention. Looking at the valley, all kinds of facilities had been built, and a large number of tents had been set up for the coming group of monsters to live in. Everything had been arranged properly. He couldn't help but nod secretly. This is the best opportunity to spread the rules I made. The demon coins must be spread and go deep into the hearts of the monsters. Let the monsters be willing to use this kind of demon coins. This is the best opportunity. If I miss it this time, I'm afraid it will be difficult next time. He secretly decided in his heart. This time, he was able to invite the other 8 great monster kings with the name of the God's Fall Abyss. Next time, he would probably never find such a good opportunity again. Success or failure, it all depended on this move. If it was really spread, it would be enough to make the southern barbarian land and the myriad demon valley a holy land in the hearts of all the monsters. The demon coins would become a measure of exchange among the monsters. It would become an irreplaceable item. At that time, with the situation that only D. Shirtion could create the demon coins, the status of the myriad demon valley would rise infinitely. I have a large number of magic weapons, a large number of materials, treasures, and spiritual essence here. There are various cultivation methods and secret arts, various magical spirit wines, and in pagoda that can improve the cultivation speed. If these things can't attract the attention of the monsters, then I can't blame anyone if I fail. Clenching his fist hard, D. Shirtion's eyes flashed with a resolute look. Walala! In the southern barbarian mountain forest, a burst of chaotic footsteps broke the silence of the forest. Listening to these footsteps, one could tell that there were no less than hundreds of thousands of Demon Clan members walking at the same time to make such a sound. The sound of footsteps also woke D. Shirtion up. "Husband," a gentle voice called out to him, and Shunshi appeared beside D. Shirtion in a natural manner. "You came at the right time." D. Shirtion nodded and gently said, "This time, the 8 Demon Kings are all here." As the Demon Empress of the Myriad Demon Valley, it is time for you to officially meet them. He wanted to officially announce Chun-Shi's identity to the world. How could Chun-Shi not understand? A warm current floated in his heart as he silently watched him. "Ha ha! D. Shirtion, long time no see. You actually broke through to the 4th transformation of the Demon Pill. Take this claw of mine." The sound of footsteps came closer and closer. Finally, a large group of demons walked out of the forest and appeared at the entrance of the Myriad Demon Valley. Opposite them was a man in a blood-red robe, full of evil aura, and with an evil smile on his face. It was the Blood Dragon King, Shui Yutian. Behind him, there were 3 seductive women. Each of them was extremely charming, and when they looked over at Shui Yutian, their eyes were filled with love and tenderness. Roar! Just as he finished speaking, the Blood Dragon King revealed an evil smile. His right hand instantly burst into the shape of a claw. Between the claws, a blood-red light flashed, forming blood-red dragon scales. He clawed at D. Shirtion. This claw tore through the void, and between the claws, there was a dragon's roar. A kind of pressure that belonged to a dragon pressed forward. The air seemed to have solidified under this pressure, and even breathing was difficult. If this claw were to hit, it would probably tear a person into countless pieces. A tearing wind from the claw almost formed a storm. It sealed off all the dodging space within a radius of 10 feet. Good one. When D. Shirtion saw this, his eyes narrowed slightly. He let Chun-Shi, who was beside him, retreat slightly to the side. He had already felt that although the Blood Dragon King's claw was fierce, it did not have any killing intent. This was obviously to test whether his cultivation was really qualified to be compared to the 8 great demon kings. However, he was not afraid of this kind of challenge. During this period of time, in the exquisite pagoda, he had already completely stabilized his realm. He had also comprehended the mysteries of the seal. There was no need for him to take out the tiger's soul. Once the tiger's soul was out of its sheath, the murderous aura would be dense. Once it was out, he might not be able to hold back. If he could avoid using his weapon, it was naturally best not to use it. His hands quickly formed a seal. His right hand burst into the shape of a seal, and his feet stepped on the void. Ripples spread out under his feet, and the seal suppressed the dragon claw. The seal was a heavy weapon. Once it was formed, the surrounding space became incomparably heavy. A unique and mysterious power instantly filled the area within a radius of 10 feet. Everything within this range was completely locked down. When the seal fell, the sky fell, and the earth cracked. Aura. This was an invisible and overbearing aura. In Deschertien's palm, the shape of a seal appeared. The patterns on the seal were simple and unadorned, exuding a vast aura. This was not the real extreme Emperor seal, but the seal that was formed still had a kind of vast and unparalleled aura, a mighty force that suppressed the void. Bang! The seal and the dragon claw collided forcefully. Suddenly, a terrifying force exploded. The seal and the dragon claw shattered at the same time. However, the void where the collision occurred was immediately distorted by the terrifying force. The mighty pressure immediately caused the surrounding demons to retreat one after another, directly retreating hundreds of feet. Good. You really have some skills. What kind of seal is this? You can actually form a seal casually and have such a domineering emperor's chi. However, I, the Blood Dragon King, am not just for show. Look at this move of mine, Dragon Claw. The Blood Dragon King was not shocked, but delighted. He laughed twice and moved his body. The blood-red dragon claw appeared again, and he used a crafty technique to attack again. Peerless Emperor Seal. Sakra's body was brimming with a strong battle intent. His hands were rapidly forming mysterious seals. In between his hands, both of his palms turned into ancient seals that were filled with monarch chi. He was like an emperor sitting in a royal court, waving his imperial seal over and over again, giving out orders. That kind of supreme might gushed out, and every seal caused the void to tremble. Edited by Lifer. Fingerfox, however, the Blood Dragon King was a demon king who had been famous for thousands of years. Those who could become demon kings were demon cultivators who walked the path of demon meridians. It was equivalent to cultivating the primordial spirit and the physical body at the same time. In terms of close combat, none of them were not good at it. Especially since he had the body of a dragon, this set of dragon claw battle techniques was extremely sharp. The fierce battle with Deschertien became extremely intense on the spot. The two figures intertwined in mid-air like lightning and collided violently, creating countless afterimages. The aura they emitted made it so that no demon race dared to enter within 100 feet of them. Once they got close, they would be instantly crushed into powder by the terrifying force inside. Demon Empress. Who do you think will win, my king or the Blood Dragon King? Bai Susu came to receive the Blood Dragon King. She did not expect the two of them to fight as soon as they met. She could not help but come to Chun Shi's side and looked at the fighting figures in the void with some worry. In terms of cultivation, the Blood Dragon King has cultivated for thousands of years more than my husband. He has accumulated a lot of experience and should win. However, my husband's set of emperor seals contains the tyrannical power of an emperor and can dominate the world. Moreover, the seals are heavy weapons, and each seal is incomparably vast. It is still too early to say who will win. Chun-Shi watched the fierce battle in midair. After all, this was just a spar, not a battle of life and death. There were even more variables. No one could tell who would win until the end. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the earth rumbled. A huge group of rats rushed in from outside the southern wilderness, and in an instant, they all transformed into human forms. Among them, the one at the front had a wretched appearance after transforming, and a few rat whiskers were sticking up, emitting a green light. He looked at the battle in midair and couldn't help but get excited. Ha! The two of you are in such a good mood. I haven't stretched my muscles for a long time. Let me join the fun. Sky-devouring divine fist. The sky-devouring rat king let out a strange roar. A mysterious black appeared on his two fists as if there was a strange devouring power. It devoured the surrounding force into his fists, causing the power on his fists to increase greatly. He flew up and punched Tion. The strangest thing was that the fist didn't make a single sound as it passed. It was completely silent, and it was the most sinister move. Good timing. When Indra saw this, the battle intent radiating from him grew even denser. An ancient imprint condensed in his hand as he smashed it towards that fist. However, in just an instant, he felt that something was wrong. When a Might of the Emperor imprint collided with that fist, a portion of its power was actually swallowed back by that fist, causing a backlash. It could actually absorb the attack power of others. It was very strange. Count me in. The Monster Kings came one after another. The Golden Winged Bat King also rushed over with a group of vampire bats. When they saw the scene of the fierce battle, they did not hesitate and rushed into the battle group. Unexpectedly, he also launched an attack towards Sakura. The wind from their claws was sharp. It seemed that they all wanted to measure whether he was qualified to stand in the same position as the 8 Monster Kings. Fight! 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 The 3 Monster Kings attacked Tion at the same time. Immediately, all the space around him was completely controlled. The overwhelming attacks bombarded every inch of his body. There was not a single blind spot. The vast and mighty power directly caused the surrounding void to distort. It was even torn apart. Such an attack could probably even shake a great demon. However, Tion, who was under the attack, had a sense of pride in his heart. The unique aura of supremacy that belonged to him suddenly roared out. Even if you attack me together, what can you do to me? I am the Emperor, the ruler of the world. Whoever dares to disobey will be killed with a seal. Extreme Emperor Imperial Seal, Demonic Seal. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 508. Flood Dragon's Claws. Flood Dragon's Tail Whip. The Blood Flood Dragon King laughed evilly. Seeing that Tion was about to form a powerful handprint, it immediately began to erupt. It waved 2 claws in succession, and the vast power of the blood dragon poured out. In midair, it turned into 2 blood-colored flood dragon figures. It was as if they were real. Even the scales of the blood flood dragon could be seen clearly. They were lifelike, and the dragons might swept in all directions with boundless power. One of the flood dragons stretched out its dragon claws, which were as large as millstones, and slashed down sharply. The other dragon swung its tail and lashed over fiercely. The void under the dragon's tail was shaken and annihilated inch by inch. It was as if it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Rat swallows the world. The sky-devouring Rat King also threw out a killing punch with a strange cry. The fist force turned into a huge, sky-devouring rat in front of him. It opened its mouth so wide that it was even bigger than its body. With a fierce swallow, the rat's mouth was like a bottomless pit. The surroundings became dark and deep. With an endless devouring power, it swallowed everything in the surroundings into its stomach. In front of him, the space was strangely distorted, turning into a terrifying black hole. Even the violent force emitted from the surrounding battles was easily swallowed. Vampire bats. The Golden Winged Bat King was not to be outdone. With a flap of its wings, thousands of tiny vampire bats appeared strangely in front of it and rushed out in all directions. On the sharp teeth in the bats' mouths, there were hollow holes in the middle. Once they pierced into the flesh, they would be sucked dry in an instant. The three monster kings could be said to have all taken out their respective famous battle skills and launched an attack at Sakura at the same time. Almost everything was shrouded under their attacks. This time, if he were to be hit, the ancient demon monarch would be severely injured. Oh no! However, when the Blood Jiao King and the others unleashed their attacks, they cursed in their hearts at the same time. Their expressions slightly changed. These are all killing moves. In a moment of excitement, they actually unleashed them without any hesitation. If this were to cause Di Shirtion to suffer heavy injuries, it would be difficult for them to get along with him in the future. After all, none of them wanted to kill Di Shirtion. He just wanted to test his cultivation base and battle prowess. They did not expect things to turn out this way. They could not help but feel some regret. However, what was done could not be undone. They could only watch as that incomparably tyrannical attack pressed down like a landslide. Boom! Boom! The southern barbarian lands trembled as large groups of monsters appeared from all directions. The other monster kings also arrived with their subordinates. Rock Monster King, Celestial Fragrance Fox King, Dream Demon King, Ancient Monster Tree King, Violet Cloud King, and Byzean. All of them had arrived. However, they clearly did not expect to see such an intense battle as soon as they arrived. All of them looked up into the sky. Brother D is truly blessed. To think that your cultivation base could rise to the fourth transformation realm in such a short period of time. Even Old Dragon and the other two could fight to such an extent. It's difficult for them to even stop. Nightmare King Silver-Haired looked at the scene in the air with a hint of astonishment in his wise eyes. However, he didn't seem to be worried about Di Shirtian's current situation. However, even if he was not worried, the others were. Chun-Chi's eyes flashed with a seven-colored divine light, and traces of monster chi were rolling in his body. Bai Susu's face turned slightly pale, and Bai Hu and Su Tianxiang could not help but frown. They looked at the void nervously, as if they were about to attack at any time. He has many trump cards. It is said that when he was in the Thousand Beast sect, he once competed with a second tribulation scattered immortal and knocked him down a realm with a divine light. Then he was sucked into that divine eye. With his strength, I'm afraid he can catch up with us old guys. Although Old Dragon and the others' attacks seem to be powerful, they may not be able to do anything to him. Whoosh! Rock Monster King was still dressed like a scholar. With a clatter, he opened the feather fan in his hand and gently shook it. He looked quite unruly. His face was calm. Boom! 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 Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, Di Shirtion immediately started to show his power. He coldly looked at the terrifying attacks that covered the sky and sealed the entire space around him. However, his heart was filled with a strong desire to fight like boiling oil. Today is the day I truly stand out in front of the Monster Kings and establish my position. At this moment, I can't lose. I have to win. I have to win. I have to win. And I have to win beautifully. I have to let all the monsters in the world know my name. Extreme Emperor Way, Celestial Demon Seal. The boundless might of an emperor shook the void like a tidal wave. He formed a seal in his hand, causing the surrounding space to tremble violently. Countless terrifying cracks appeared, and within those cracks, boundless desire energy condensed in a black chi. The black chi rapidly gathered in front of him, and in an instant, it transformed into mysterious runes. Rumble. It was an ancient seal formed from countless runes. On this seal, thousands of gods and devils were entrenched on it. They seemed to be praying, and they seemed to be letting out unwilling roars. Boundless fiend god energy gushed out instantly, crushing everything in its path. Boundless death intent swept out in all directions. On the spot, countless monsters were pulled into the endless killing intent by the celestial demons. Their faces were filled with grief and indignation, and tears fell from their eyes. The moment the celestial demon seal appeared, Di Shirtian's aura rose at a terrifying speed. 5th Transformation Monster Core, 6th Transformation Monster Core. In an instant, It was as if he had broken through one after another, emitting endless power. As if it was real, the celestial demon seal flew from his hand to the top of his head and suppressed the void. It was as if everything under the seal was suppressed. The flood dragon, the vampire bat, and the sky-devouring rat king were all suppressed and imprisoned in the void by the terrifying power of the ancient seal. It was as if they had been immobilized. They all stopped moving. The flood dragon's claws were about to touch D. Shirtian's head. Just like that, they were imprisoned in a strange position and could no longer move. At this moment, countless demons sucked in cold breaths. He stared at the ancient seal with a horrified expression. Suppress. D. Shirtian spat out a word coldly. Immediately, the celestial demon seal hanging above his head pressed down slightly. With a boom, the attacks imprisoned by the celestial demon seal began to collapse in an instant. The flood dragon was annihilated inch by inch. The vampire bat was crushed into powder, and the sky-devouring rat king was defeated. The entire void was destroyed by the suppression of the celestial demon seal. Clap, clap, clap. The rock demon king clapped his hands lightly and broke the silence. He said, "Good, good, good. From now on, we monsters have another demon king. You are worthy of the title of Tion Fa Demon King. Just this giant handprint alone is enough to look down on all monsters. From now on, we monsters are the 9 great demon kings." At this time, he walked out, and his words could be said to have completely confirmed Sakra's identity. Moreover, there was an addition to the original 8 great demon kings, one of the 9 great demon kings, the Tion Fa Demon King. Greetings, Tion Fa Demon King. Suddenly, in the southern wilderness, whether it was the group of monsters that originally belonged to D. Shirtian in the Myriad Demon Valley, or the other monsters brought by the Rock Demon King, they all bowed respectfully to D. Shirtian, who was standing in the void. With a single bow, his status was firmly established. It could be said that from today on, no one in the monster clan would not know his name. Haha, Brother D, you are amazing. I admire you. I really admire you. You can even suppress my flood dragon. The Blood Dragon King said with a smile. Obviously, he had completely recognized D. Shirtian's identity. Just this celestial demon seal alone could suppress and imprison everything. It was enough to become an expert among the demon kings. Naturally, there was no need to continue fighting. Since you have agreed to come to my Myriad Demon Valley, D. Shirtian is honored. Please come into the valley to talk. I have prepared high-quality spiritual fruits and meat. D. Shirtian dispersed his pressure and completely restrained himself. He invited the demon kings into the valley. At the same time, he introduced Shun Shi to the others. They walked toward the mansion that had been built in the valley. At the same time, the group of monsters that came with the other demon kings also settled down in an orderly manner under the arrangement of Hu and the others. They were assigned tents to live in. Moreover, the other demon clans were allowed to walk around freely in the valley. The few built pavilions naturally attracted the attention of the monsters, and they walked in excitedly. In the Myriad Demon Valley, all kinds of things immediately surprised many of the foreign demon clans. Actually, along the way, when Demon King Peng and the others saw those pavilions, a strange look flashed across their eyes. However, with Sakra, the master, leading the way, if they didn't speak, they wouldn't have the nerve to ask. They would only come to explore when they were free. However, the other monsters that followed did not have such scruples. They walked into the pavilions one after another. The Myriad Demon Valley had the Immortal Brew Pavilion, the Rare Treasure Pavilion, the Sutra Depository Pavilion, and the Inch In Pagoda. As soon as the group of monsters entered, they could not help but go crazy with excitement. My God, there is actually spiritual wine for sale here. Monkey wine that can increase cultivation, mysterious ice jade fire wine that can strengthen the body. There is also heart-cleansing Bodhi wine. These are all treasures that can't be seen at ordinary times. A demon clan member who had already condensed his Niden entered the Immortal Brew Pavilion and saw all kinds of spiritual wine. His eyes immediately widened. He hurriedly asked the steward of the pavilion, "Brother, may I ask how much spiritual wine is sold here? What do you want to exchange for it? I have a 3,000-year-old six-leaf snow ganoderma here. Can I exchange it for spiritual wine?" "I'm sorry. Although the spiritual wine in the Immortal Brew Pavilion is sold to the public, it can't be exchanged with items. The pavilion only accepts demon coins." The steward of the pavilion was a young man from the Fox clan who had condensed his Niden. He had received instructions earlier, and now he was even more flexible. He smiled and said, "This monkey wine, each gourd contains 3 caddies. The selling price is 50 demon coins. Mysterious ice jade fire wine. Each gourd also contains 3 caddies, but the selling price is 70 demon coins." Chapter 509. Demon coins were made from divine crystals. Divine crystals were extremely precious. Although they were made into demon coins, no one could use them as refining materials. However, their precious characteristics determined their value. If one were to compare a demon coin with a spirit stone, it could be compared to 1,000 spirit stones. Therefore, the value of demon coins was naturally extremely precious. The monkey wine was worth 50 demon coins. If it was really equivalent, it would be worth 50,000 spirit stones. In fact, the production of demon coins was quite cheap. They were made from various materials and incense. However, it was extremely unique. Its unique characteristics caused its high value. The Immortal Wine Pavilion in the Immortal Cultivation world also had a price of 50,000 spirit stones. It was not something that ordinary cultivators could afford. However, compared to those big sects and big families, this amount of spirit stones was nothing. Back in the days, the big immortal cultivation sects on Ling Long Island would bid in the hundreds of thousands, millions, or even hundreds of millions of immortal cultivators. Demon coins? What's a demon coin? The demon race obviously did not understand what demon coins were and quickly asked. Demon coins are the unique currency of our Myriad Demon Valley. In our Myriad Demon Valley, no matter what you want to buy, you will need to use demon coins. Other than demon coins, we will not accept anything else. You see, this is it. The young man immediately took out a crystal-like demon coin. The demon coin was round on the outside and square on the inside, just like the copper coins made in ancient times. However, this demon coin was incomparably exquisite. The demon coin was printed with the image of a brave black tiger. Holding in his hand, it was like a perfect piece of art. The light flowing around, it was very beautiful. Where can I get this demon coin? I can exchange it with the spiritual essence in my hand. The demon race's eyes were immediately attracted by the exquisite appearance of the demon coin. He quickly asked where the demon coin could be exchanged. "Go out and go straight ahead. There is a Jubao court. You can take your things there and exchange them for demon coins. If you have a lot of demon coins, you can also exchange them for demon coin cards. It's more convenient." The young man immediately pointed the way to the demon race. Immediately, the demon race, without saying anything, immediately turned around and rushed to the Jubao court. When they arrived, they immediately realized that there was a long queue in front of the Jubao court. All kinds of discussions spread in the air. "Brother, this Myriad Demon Valley is really full of treasures. Usually, we demons don't dare to go to the immortal cultivation world to find a suitable magic weapon. If we refine it ourselves, the quality of the treasures refined will be poor. They can't be compared with the magic weapons and weapons of the immortal cultivators. It was extremely difficult to obtain good treasures. Who would have thought that I would see a big saber in the Qijin Pavilion? It's so domineering. That's a high-grade magical weapon. I have to get it this time. Isn't that so? Qijin Pavilion sure has a lot of treasures. I've been cultivating for hundreds of years, and I've never seen so many treasures with my own eyes. Even my eyes were dazzled by the dazzling light inside. You had to buy one back. If it weren't for the fact that you need demon coins to buy things here, I would have exchanged it with something on the spot. This piece of Vajra mysterious stone should be able to be exchanged for a lot of demon coins. Those demon coins, TSK, they look so comfortable. They also sell spirit wine. It's as effective as the medicinal pills in the immortal cultivation world. It's even more effective. If you buy some back, your cultivation will definitely be several times faster. Cultivation methods. I saw a lot of cultivation methods in the scripture pavilion. I've been cultivating for so long, but I haven't found a suitable one yet. This time, I have to go all out and get a cultivation method. There are many powerful spells and battle skills. This myriad demon valley is like a paradise. It's like a holy land. That's nothing. I heard that the Inch Shadow Pagoda is even more amazing. It has 3 floors. When you enter the first floor, you can reverse the time in the pagoda by 10 times compared to the outside world. 1 day outside is 10 days inside the pagoda, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is incomparably abundant. The second floor can reverse the time by 50 times, and the third floor can reverse the time by 100 times. 1 year outside is 100 years inside the pagoda. It's amazing. Almost in an instant, the crowd of demons was shocked. A large number of Dharma instruments, Dharma treasures, spirit wine, cultivation methods, and cultivation grounds. All of these items directly stirred the hearts of many demon clans. Needless to say, Dharma treasures and Dharma treasures. Although most of the demon clans cultivated their demon body and refined their inner core, Dharma treasures and Dharma treasures were still needed by everyone. Similarly, as long as one had a suitable Dharma treasure in hand, one's strength would immediately increase exponentially. Unfortunately, most of the demons were born in the mountains and forests. They only knew how to absorb the essence of the sun and the moon and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Although they could rely on an instinct to find some spiritual objects to guard them, few of them knew how to refine magic weapons, and medicinal pills. Every magic weapon was an extremely rare treasure. Naturally, they were all quite eager. However, there were many people in the immortal cultivation world who knew how to refine magic weapons. But if you let a demon enter the immortal cultivation world, wouldn't that be purely courting death? This made the demons have a lot of precious spiritual materials and spiritual essences in their hands. However, when these things were placed on their bodies, they really felt heartache. They had no ability to refine them into the treasures they needed. As a result, although they had materials on their bodies, they didn't even have a decent magic weapon. Poor Cece. How excited would they be to suddenly discover the treasures that they wanted but couldn't obtain appear in front of them all of a sudden? There were also cultivation methods. The cultivation methods in the Sutra Depository, the ancient demon cultivation methods that Di Shurtian took out from the Linglong Treasure Pagoda, and the orthodox demon cultivation methods. These could be found from the yellow level to the earth level. There were more than 10,000 volumes. In addition, there were the cultivation methods that Di Shurtian plundered from the Thousand Beast sect and directly robbed the Thousand Beast sect's inheritance pavilion. In the pavilion, there were more than 1 million volumes of cultivation methods, ancient books, secret methods, unofficial history, and even some miscellaneous books and ancient books that introduced local customs and all kinds of spiritual materials and rare treasures. It could be said to be all-inclusive. In addition, Di Shurtian obtained countless jade slips by stealing the sky and sun, and obtained more than 10,000 volumes of cultivation methods. Therefore, in the Sutra Depository, whether it was the orthodox demon cultivation methods of the demon clan, the cultivation methods of the cultivators from the immortal cultivation world, or other combat skills, spells, and secret methods. In total, there were a total of 5 million volumes. The ancient books in the Sutra Depository were not allowed to be taken out. However, one could choose one and make a copy. Every time one chose one would have to pay a corresponding amount of demon coins. The amount of demon coins was estimated according to the grade of the cultivation method. For example, to choose a yellow level cultivation method, one would have to pay 100 demon coins to make a copy. For the black level, it was 1,000 demon coins. For the earth level, it was 10,000 demon coins. As for the heaven level, it was not open to the public. As for the other miscellaneous books, it was 100 demon coins. Think about it. In ancient times, countless cultivation methods were lost among the demon clan. In the end, the current demon clan did not even have a cultivation method and could only cultivate with the most basic cultivation method. The Sutra Depository was the most attractive to the demon clan. They took out their treasures to the Jubao court to exchange for demon coins. After the demon clan that entered in front of them exchanged their spiritual materials for demon coins, they immediately turned around and ran toward the treasures they wanted. 1,000-year-old rare spiritual material could be exchanged for 1,000 demon coins. With 1,000 demon coins, one could already buy a good treasure. Think about it. Which demon clan did not have some treasures? Now that they had taken them out, the Jubao court had really become a treasure bowl. Moreover, the demon coins were really circulating to the demon clan at an astonishing speed. They did not have any resistance to these exquisite demon coins. These demon coins were extremely difficult to destroy and were exquisite. They were almost perfect currency. No matter when, as long as they were brought to the Myriad Demon Valley, they could buy all kinds of treasures. Everything was developing in the direction that Di Shirtion had imagined before. The circulation of demon coins was smoothly going on. If there were no accidents, in the future, the demon clan would no longer trade goods and would replace the circulation with demon coins. The matter of the demon clan in the valley was temporarily put aside. On the other hand, Sakura and the other demon kings entered the mansion in the valley together. They sat down in the main hall. Here, Di Shirtion was the master, and the other demon kings were guests. Naturally, Di Shirtion sat on the main seat, and the other demon kings sat separately. Chun-Shi sat beside him. As soon as they sat down, the maids of the Fox clan served plates of exquisite spirit fruits. Vermilion fruits, immortal peaches, and immortal plums, all emitting an alluring fragrance. The wine was top-grade spirit wine. It could be said that it was an extremely precious treat to treat the guests with 100-year-old monkey wine. There were also all kinds of spirit grains and blood food seized from the Thousand Beast sect. They were served like fish dragons. The tables of every demon king were filled with food. The seats here were very similar to those in ancient times. Everyone had a seat. In front of them, there was a small table. The table was used to place all kinds of food. There was even rice, but it was not the rice of the mortal world. It was a kind of spirit grain called exquisite rice. Each grain of rice had 7 orifices and seemed to be able to breathe. It was very magical. It contained spiritual energy, which made it even more delicious to eat. These spirit herbs and spirit fruits weren't commonly seen items. The demon kings weren't ignorant and naturally knew the value of these items. Each and every one of them was secretly astonished by the abundance of Sakura's assets. Under Di Shirtian's invitation, the demon kings also raised their glasses and drank. After 3 rounds of wine, Di Shirtian put down the wine glass. Looking around, the expression on his face became solemn. The demon kings immediately knew that the main event was finally coming. They all looked at him. One had to know that this time they were all invited by him. I think everyone should have heard about the matter of the god-perishing abyss. Di Shirtian said in a deep voice. He glanced at the faces of the demon kings and directly threw out a shocking piece of news. Actually, the rumor that is spreading crazily in the cultivation world was spread by me. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 510. What? As soon as Di Shirtian's voice fell, all the demon kings in the hall were in an uproar. Even the rock demon king was stunned for a moment, and the feather fan in his hand paused. A strange light flashed through the silver-haired demon king's deep eyes as he looked at Di Shirtian thoughtfully. There was an uproar. Even with the temperaments of the various demon kings that had lived for thousands of years, they were still shocked to the point of being somewhat dumbstruck by these words that Sakura threw out. It was as if there were raging waves rolling in their hearts. Even though the demon clan had become a force to be reckoned with, some news on the purple gold continent still couldn't escape their investigation. Currently, The entire world of immortal cultivators, and even the entire heavens and realms, had gone crazy because of a rumor about the God's Fall abyss. What was even more incredible was that this rumor wasn't just a rumor. It was the truth. This was a secret that was kept between the various large sections, a secret that had been prepared for thousands of years, had actually been publicized. It could be imagined that when the various large sects heard this rumor, they would all be so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. This was simply a slap in the face, a plot to take away the fruits of their hard work for countless years. Originally, with a backup plan that they had plotted for countless years, they were confident that they would be able to obtain considerable benefits from the million treasures Scarlet Tide. But now, the whole thing was publicized, causing the whole world of immortal cultivators to go completely crazy. They rushed to the Scarlet Tide Island like crazy, wanted to have a share of the delicious food that they had prepared. How did they feel? If they could find the person who spread the rumor, they would even have the thought of eating him alive. How could they, as demon kings, not know such a big thing? Moreover, when they found out that the rumor was true, they also wanted to go to the God's Fall abyss to have a share of the pie. Unfortunately, as soon as they had this thought, it was immediately dispelled. None of the demon kings were fools. Years ago, when they heard that the world of immortal cultivators had slaughtered their brothers of the demon clan, they dared to lead a group of demons to destroy more than 10 sects in a row. They even went to the front gate of the first-rate sect, the Five Elements sect, forcing the world of immortal cultivators to compromise and set up an immortal cultivator competition. The biggest reason was that most of the cultivators above the tribulation stage in the large sects had left their sects and gathered together to make all kinds of preparations for the God's Fall abyss today. They wanted to make a big fortune in the million treasures Scarlet Tide that was about to come. That was why the group of demons could destroy dozens of sects in a row without any restrictions. Things were different now. The entrance to the Godfall Abyss was on Crimson Tide Island, and there were countless elites and experts on Crimson Tide Island. Not to mention Tribulation Transcendence Realm, experts who had already broken through to the immortal realm, and perhaps even honorables who were ancient giants would show up. Under such circumstances, a group of demons running to the Scarlet Tide Island was simply walking into a trap. It was believed that those experts would definitely not mind subduing demons and vent their pent-up anger on them. Of course, although they were itching, no one dared to act rashly. However, everyone probably had their own ideas about the God's Fall abyss. Otherwise, they would not have immediately led their subordinates and rushed over from hundreds of millions of miles away after seeing D. Shirtian's invitation. However, to be honest, no one would have thought that the rumor that had stirred up the whole world was actually made up by D. Shirtian. After a while, the evil smile on the Blood Dragon King's face disappeared. He looked at D. Shirtian strangely and said, "I'm convinced. I'm completely convinced this time. Who would have thought that the rumor that had stirred up the entire world of immortal cultivators was actually spread by you? TSK. A rumor can play the whole world in the palm of your hand. Old Dark Flood Dragon will never be able to catch up to this strategy." It was scary to think about it, daring to play all the practitioners in the world in the palm of your hand. You have this kind of means, and you also need this kind of ability. You have this kind of strong courage. The silver-haired man's talent was extremely strange. He could enter the dreams of people. His realm was extremely high. Light flashed in his eyes, and wisdom flashed in the depth. In the blink of an eye, he grasped the key point. He stared at D. Shirtian and said in surprise, "Brother D, you have stirred up the whole Zijin land. Moreover, you have spread the news about the thousands treasure Red Tide as if it was your own treasure. You even know the secret that the God's Fall Abyss is temporarily frozen by the innate yin and yang dust formation, and you have spread this news. Presumably, you are not the kind of person who harms others without benefiting yourself. You have other plans." This was not a question, but an extremely affirmative tone. From his understanding of D. Shirtian, he was not the kind of person who would suffer losses. Every step he took must have a purpose. Moreover, the most important thing was that the 8 of them had been invited to come here at the same time. This already showed that this plot was not a small matter. "Shirtian, Bai Su Tianxiang frowned slightly. Between her slender fingers was a red fruit. She said, "Could it be that you want to seize the thousands treasure red tide in the God's Fall abyss?" As she said this, a strong sense of fear appeared between her eyebrows. She shook her head and continued, "There is a great horror in the God's Fall abyss. The number of soldier souls inside has reached a terrifying level after hundreds of millions of years. Moreover, the soldier souls are known for killing. Once they meet, they will not stop until they are dead. Entering the abyss, there may not be 1 in 10 who can escape. Moreover, at this moment, the entrance of the Crimson Tide Island has been controlled by the practitioners of the human clan. We of the demon clan can't get close at all." There was a hint of warning in her words. Back then, she had personally experienced the horror of the God's Fall abyss. She was lucky enough to enter the abyss and obtain the Imperial Sky treasure box. She was immediately chased by the soldier souls. Although she was lucky enough to escape, she was still seriously injured. She was humiliated to be chased by a mere nascent soul practitioner. She had a deep impression of it. Di Shirtian heard this and gave Baihu a reassuring look. He said with certainty, "That's right. I did spread the news of the God's Fall abyss. The purpose is to thoroughly stir up the waters of the God's Fall abyss. Moreover, I am indeed planning the thousands treasure red tide. In the Crimson Tide, all the ownerless treasures in the universe gather into a tide. It only happens once every 3,000 years. This time, the abyss has been completely sealed by the human clan's formation. This is a rare opportunity in hundreds of millions of years. Of course, I will not go to the Crimson Tide Island. I expose this to disrupt the human clan. I want the Crimson Tide Island to attract everyone's attention. Could it be that you know other ways to enter the God's Fall abyss?" The ancient demon tree king's old voice echoed in the hall. No expression could be seen on his withered tree-like face. However, from his words, one could tell that he was not an ignorant person. He was shrewd in his heart. "That's right." Di Shirkian's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He nodded and said in a deep voice, "The human clan has a good plan. They used an ancient formation to gather countless experts and countless forces to activate it. They formed a bridge to seal the abyss. They thought that this move was flawless. However, they did not know that when I was in the Thousand Beasts sect that day, I was brought into the abyss by the spatial fluctuations of the God's Fall abyss. I learned of the human clan's plan." Disdain appeared on Sakra's face as he continued. They didn't know that when the abyss was stabilized, the space between the abyss and heaven and earth was weakened, allowing them to pass through those weak points and enter the abyss. Therefore, I stirred up the water and made the Scarlet Tide Island the focus of attention of all the worlds in the universe. While we, the monster race, took this opportunity to enter the abyss from another entrance without anyone noticing. When the 10,000 treasure Crimson Tide arrives, we can use the method of stealing the sky and changing the sun. Wouldn't we be able to get a big share of the pie? Di Shirtian spoke leisurely and eloquently. Not only did he tell the reason, but he also described an incomparably tempting future for the group of demons. Hearing this, the demon kings all had their imaginations run wild. The 10,000 treasure Crimson Tide itself is a terrifying force. When the tide of treasures surges, even the venerables have to avoid it. Moreover, the Crimson Tide is like the Huang Quan Holy River that we saw back then. When the Crimson Tide rises, no one can ride above the Crimson Tide and will be pulled in. It is not easy to gain benefits from the Crimson Tide. The Rock Demon King's expression was calm as he gently waved the feather fan in his hand. "I have a treasure that can ride above the Crimson Tide," Di Shirtian said indifferently. "Damn it, let's do it. Why can the human race monopolize the almost endless treasures in the Crimson Tide? Brother D, as long as you really have a treasure that can protect yourself in the Crimson Tide, I, Old Flood Dragon, will fight with you this time. If we don't die, we will live for thousands of years. Now that we have the Heavenly Thunder platform in our hands, we can summon the Purple Thunder Rain. We already have the opportunity to rise. What we lack is enough treasures to increase our strength. If we could get a share of the pie, we won't have to worry about not rising. Smack! The blood flood dragon king's eyes suddenly narrowed. He slammed the table hard and shouted with a fierce face. There was a hint of blood in his eyes. That's right. If the human race obtains that wealth, the demon race will be in danger. This risk is worth taking. Silver Hair closed his eyes and pondered for a while. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and said decisively, "All right, in that case, there's nothing for everyone to worry about." Silver Hair could be said to be a strategist among the 8 demon kings. When he made a decision, the Rock Demon King immediately followed suit. Indeed, there was almost no need to hesitate at this point. Would they be willing to sit back and watch the human race work hard to plunder the Crimson Tide while they watched helplessly in the deep mountains? After the decision was made, the atmosphere in the hall immediately livened up. Wine was continuously served like a merry-go-round. The atmosphere was very harmonious as they ate and drank. However, in the hearts of the demons, they also remembered Di Shurtian's favor in the bottom of their hearts. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 511. At this moment, the seeds of various spiritual objects that Di Shurtian had bought from the cultivation world had already been planted in the myriad demon valley. In addition, there were some immortal birds and immortal beasts. They were all delicious and could only be tasted in the cultivation world. In the valley, they had already been planted by Susu and her subordinates. At this moment, they were being used to entertain the Rock Demon King and the others. In addition, there were spiritual wine and various spiritual essences. Naturally, the guests and the host enjoyed themselves to the fullest. They ate until the moon was in the middle of the sky. After the banquet, the maidservants arranged for the monster kings to stay in various places. However, a sudden commotion in the valley made the monster kings lose their desire to rest. They left their residences and looked in the direction of the commotion. In the middle of the 3 pavilions and 1 pagoda, in front of the Qijian pavilion, was a large group of demons. When Silver Hair and the others saw this, they looked at each other and walked towards the direction of the commotion in unison. They did not make a sound and did not alert the other demons. They hid their auras and walked over together. They walked in to take a look. Their eyes couldn't help but narrow. Their gazes were first attracted by a group of 10 demon soldiers from the myriad demon valley. In the middle of the field stood a group of demon soldiers in black armor. They held the same weapon in their hands, which was a slender saber that was 1 zhang long. There were mysterious patterns on the armor of these demon soldiers, which gave off a murderous aura. They all had the same armor and sabers. This was standard equipment. Moreover, from the aura emitted by the sabers and armor, one could tell that they were not ordinary items. They are all elites who have condensed their inner cores. The armor and sabers are not ordinary weapons. They have a murderous aura on them. The cultivation technique they practice must be extraordinary. It's a killing technique. Once they attack and join forces, I'm afraid that even twice the number of people in the same realm will not be able to suppress them. Silver Hair and the other monster kings could not help but be shocked. Condensing an inner core was not an easy task. However, it was not surprising that there were 10 of them. However, demons had always been wild. Often, when they charged, they would swarm forward without any order. Naturally, they could not be expected to follow the rules like the army in the mortal world. As for the group of demon soldiers in front of him, when they stood together, the 10 of them seemed to be a single entity. This was definitely a temperament that could only be achieved through various kinds of strict training. At this moment, the monster kings could not help but secretly feel curious about the myriad demon valley. Looking at the leader, he was wearing silver armor and had long silver-white hair. The aura he exuded was comparable to that of a second transformation Yaodan. The aura on his body and the light in his eyes all carried a kind of coldness that made one's heart turn cold. There was no expression on his face. It naturally exuded a threatening aura. Yao Dan's second refinement, silver hair, spat out softly. Uncle! Beside him, the little girl, stood aside and looked at the scene. Even her voice was a little surprised. This myriad demon valley is really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Di Shirtian's cultivation has reached the fourth transformation Yao Dan, and his combat strength is unparalleled. Just now, when I observed Demon Empress Chun-Shi, I found that her cultivation is actually comparable to Di Shirtian's. It's really interesting that such an expert was unknown before. Silverhair chuckled and looked at Yu, seeming to understand something. These demon soldiers were not the only ones present. There was also one who, after transforming, had a strange red face. At this moment, he was arguing with the demon soldiers. He even shouted indignantly, what do you want? Do you want to bully me? Qi Lian? Let me tell you, I'm not afraid. What kind of bullsh tea place is this? Why can't I exchange a myriad poisonous spirit pearl with a blood-eaten fruit tree? I'm not taking it for free. Why can't you let me have it? That indignant look was accompanied by an indignant aura. In his hand, he was holding a pearl that shone with a green light. Everything in this valley and all transactions must be purchased with demon coins. If you have spirit essence, you can take it to the Jubao court and exchange it for demon coins. You took the pearl without the permission of the shopkeeper of the Qizhen Pavilion. This action has violated the laws of the 10,000 Demon Codex. How can you surrender without a fight? The silver-armored man with a cold face was none other than Bai Yu, the demon supervisor of the demon guards. The demon supervisor he led was responsible for supervising the 10,000 Demon Codex. I'm not returning it. What can you do to me? Qi Lian snorted arrogantly and was about to leave. If that's the case, don't blame me for being impolite. Bai Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. As soon as he finished speaking, he did not hesitate at all. He quickly formed a seal in his hand and slammed his palm towards Qi Lian. Instantly, a large silver-white palm appeared in front of him. It fell towards Qi Lian. Qi Lian's eyes flashed fiercely when he saw this. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood mist. It was like blood mist was shot towards Bai Yu. There was a fishy smell in the blood mist. It was so pungent that people who smelled it almost fainted. It contained a terrifying poison. When Bai Yu saw that, he wasn't surprised at all. He struck out again, and another gigantic handprint appeared in front of him. That handprint was filled with a terrifying, murderous energy, and it instantly suppressed the blood mist. At the same time, the previous handprint also landed on Qi Lian's body. Strangely, no matter how Qi Lian attacked, the handprint was like an illusion and it couldn't be stopped from entering his body. At the moment the hand seal entered his body, immediately, Qi Lian's first transformation demon core cultivation base disappeared mysteriously. He fainted on the spot. Take him away. Bai Yu waved his hand and ordered the demon soldiers behind him to take Qi Lian away. Although they would not take his life, they would definitely lock him up for a while. The hand seal that he had just struck was not an ordinary one. It was the heaven sealing seal and the heaven punishment seal that Di Shirtian had taught him back then. One was for sealing, while the other was for killing. It was very domineering. The head demon guards quickly retreated. Tisk, interesting. Qi Lian was captured so easily. Di Shirtian's place is really full of experts. The Blood Dragon King muttered to himself thoughtfully when he saw the scene just now. Qi Lian was his subordinate. Now that he had been captured, he was not in a hurry to mention it. Instead, he was extremely curious about the true strength of the myriad demon valley. Demon coins? What demon coins? The Monster Kings could not help but have a series of questions in their hearts at the same time. They had been discussing with Di Shirtian about the fallen god's abyss. Now that they had time to walk around the valley, they wanted to see the foundation of the myriad demon valley. However, their curiosity was aroused by the demon coins. They all walked into the 3 pavilions and 1 pagoda in the valley. Wow, so many magic treasures and weapons. Silverhair also walked into the Qizhan pavilion next to him with Xiaoyu. As soon as they entered, they immediately saw that in the pavilion there were a large number of magic treasures, and divine weapons. Xiaoyu was even more dazzled by the sight. Her mouth unconsciously opened wide. She was very cute. What a little girl. Xiaoyu followed beside Silverhair. It was not that she had never seen treasures before, but she had never seen so many magic treasures at once. In this pavilion, they were divided into categories. Just the first floor alone had tens of thousands of rare treasures. In front of each treasure, there was a clear price tag. Their prices were all marked with demon coins. It's really unusual. Silverhair's eyes became more and more profound. It was almost rare to see a magic treasure in the monster clan. Here, he could see thousands of treasures. Thinking about it, how shocking this was. Could it be that among Di Shitian's subordinates, there is actually a refiner who can refine magic treasures? If these things were only taken from the immortal cultivation world, he should not have taken them out to sell. Instead, he should have left them for his subordinates to use. In this case, it means that in this valley, there's probably a refiner who is constantly helping him refine magic treasures and magic treasures. Refining medicinal pills. Could it be that he captured refiners and alchemists from the immortal cultivation world? Silverhair always seemed to be able to inadvertently see things that ordinary people could not see. In just an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind, but he did not know that he had guessed correctly. After General Rat's intelligence network was spread out, he immediately began to use the strategy of plundering talents. Yuan Tian used a kind of enchanting wine brewed with enchanting grass to capture those cultivators who knew how to refine magic treasures, medicinal pills, and even formations. With the power of the enchanting wine, after they were knocked out, they were transported into the southern wilderness without anyone knowing. When those people woke up, they were already in the southern wilderness. In addition to other means of control, enticement, and coercion, these cultivators taught the demons various skills and refined all kinds of magic treasures. After walking around the Qizhen Pavilion, he also went to the Immortal Wine Pavilion. He was secretly amazed by the spirit wine inside. It was absolutely not inferior to any medicinal pills. In fact, it was even better. In the Sutra Depository, there were more than 1,000,000 scrolls of cultivation methods, which made Silverhair's heart even more shocked. In particular, he saw many of the demonic cultivation methods that had been passed down from the ancient demonic clan, as well as strange objects. It was simply not inferior to any of the top sections. Just this foundation alone was quite incredible. Then he looked at the Jubao court, where he could exchange demon coins. He saw the figure of a handsome black tiger appear on one side of the demon coin, and the 4 demon characters Huangji Qianfa appeared on the other side. The charm was simple and unadorned. Every demon coin was exactly the same, perfect and flawless. Demon coin was the only unit of measurement. Every demon coin represented 1 demon coin. Above the demon coins, there were demon coin cards. Demon coin cards are divided by denomination: 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, 10,000,000, 100,000,000. For example, if you have 1,000 demon coins, if you want to carry them around, you can convert these 1,000 demon coins into a demon coin card with a denomination of 1,000 demon coins. When you trade, you can directly use the demon coin card to trade, just like the paper money in his previous life. What a good method. What a brilliant method. From now on, I'm afraid that there will be no demon in the demon clan who does not know about the existence of demon coins. What a clever mind, silently thinking of this method to unify the demon clan's currency. Great talent and bold vision, as expected of a great talent and bold vision. A strange color appeared in Silverhair's eyes. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.qijien.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 512. While he was marveling inwardly, he suddenly recalled the scenes in the heavenly demon secret realm. He couldn't help but lower his eyes and ponder. A thought flashed through his mind like a spark. He thought to himself, back in the heavenly demon's secret realm, there were 5 questions on the heart-questioning path. The first one was about courage. It was about fearlessness. This question was the easiest, but also the most difficult. However, there were many who passed it. However, the second question was extremely illusory. It was about responsibility and universal love. Could one love the entire demon race? I have already been eliminated on this question. There are 3 more questions, and if one passes all 5 questions, they will receive the true inheritance of the heavenly demon. Back then, old Jiao and I were sent out of the heart-questioning road by the heart-questioning palace. Everyone else had already come out, but only Sakura had never come out. No, I understand now. On the heart-questioning road, what he passed wasn't only the second question that he said. He passed all 5 of the questions. He has already received the inheritance of the heavenly demon Ziyue. He is the king chosen by the heavenly demon to lead the demon race on the road to prosperity, the emperor. No wonder he has such an unimaginable cultivation speed. In less than 20 years, he has continuously broken through to the next level. Today, he is one of the 8 monarchs. If he had obtained the inheritance of the heavenly beast and obtained the boundless wealth left behind by Lord Ziyu, then everything would make sense. Silver Hair was wise and farsighted. He only caught some clues and associated it with Sakura's strange behavior in the heavenly demon's secret realm. Unexpectedly, he was able to guess the truth of the matter. He wasn't wrong to think that way. If he hadn't obtained the benefits in the secret realm and obtained the exquisite creation pagoda, Tian wouldn't have been able to cultivate to such a height in such a short time, even if he had the support of shocking talent and unparalleled wealth. The 4th transformation of the demon core was a realm that ordinary demon race might not be able to reach even after thousands of years of cultivation. But he had reached it in such a short time. This was simply a legend. Silver Hair suppressed the thoughts in his mind and looked at the towering buildings in the valley. Including the Jubao court, there were a total of 4 pavilions and 1 tower. Looking at the demons who had followed them here, they happily lined up in a long line in front of the treasure-gathering pavilion. The scene of them exchanging the treasures they had guarded for many years for demon coins made them feel a wave of admiration. Heavenly Demon Ziyu, back then, she was known as the #1 venerable below the unparalleled experts. He was so powerful that he could almost rival a peerless expert. Her status in the demon race was even more important. It was said that she was the daughter of the demon lord, the master of the 3 divine tombs. Her status was almost unimaginable. She must have her reasons for choosing a king. To be able to pass the path of heart questioning, one must have unparalleled talent and great luck. Everything that's happened now shows that his rise is almost unstoppable. He had completely understood Tian's purpose. The first step was to completely unify the currency of the entire demon race. This plan, if in the past, would be a fool's dream. With the demon race scattered in the mountains and forests, it was almost impossible to unify the currency. But now, the impossible had become possible. First, he took out all kinds of treasures that the demon race couldn't refuse at all. Magic tools, magic weapons, spiritual wine, pills, cultivation methods, and even the most precious place for cultivation, the enchantment tower that could reverse time and space. Even if you could resist one kind of temptation, you couldn't resist the other temptations. Naturally, they would be willing to take out spiritual herbs and treasures in exchange for demon coins. In the valley, only demon coins were accepted. Only the purchasing power of demon coins was recognized. If he wanted magic tools and magic treasures, sure, he had to pay with demon coins. If he wanted spirit wine to aid his cultivation, sure, he had to pay with demon coins. If he wanted to obtain a cultivation method that was better than the one he was currently cultivating, sure, he had to pay with demon coins. If you want to enjoy the carefree speed of 10 days, dozens of days, or even hundreds of days, you still need demon coins. In this situation, demon coins would unconsciously enter the hearts of the demons. Xiaoyu, what do you think of this myriad demon valley? Silver Hair showed a meaningful look at the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, he turned his head to look at Yuer, who was following beside him, and asked inexplicably. Hearing this, Xiaoyu showed a thoughtful look. After thinking for a while, she said, "It's very lively and prosperous. This place is comparable to the immortal cultivation city and market square in the immortal cultivation world. In my demon race, it should be unique. In terms of foundation, it should be the biggest." At this point, her eyes couldn't help but show a look of admiration. "Then are you willing to live here for a while in the future?" Silver Hair said with a faint smile. "As uncle arranges." Although Xiaoyu was still a little lowly, but her mentality wasn't any worse than an adult. She immediately understood the meaning of Silver Hair's words. It was obvious that he wanted her to try her best to be on good terms with Sakura's lineage. She didn't have any objection to this. Instead, she was interested. She was very curious about the things in the valley. She vaguely felt that everything in this myriad demon valley was different from other places. Few of the other demon kings would train their subordinates like an army. Not only Silver Hair, but the other demon kings also walked around the 4 pavilions and 1 tower. They couldn't hide a look of surprise between their brows. They were really shocked by the scene created by Di Shirtion, especially in the Jubao court, where the demon coins were exchanged. With the wisdom of the demon kings, how could they not know that once the demon coins were released, it would definitely bring a huge change to the entire demon race? They all knew that once the demon coins were accepted by all the demon race, as the only place that could produce demon coins, the myriad demon valley status would leap to become an irreplaceable existence in the hearts of the demon race. They were afraid that among the demon kings, it would be the most powerful one and lay an incomparably solid foundation. It would be above them. To be honest, there were definitely those who were shocked and unconvinced. However, before this, Di Shirtion had thrown a huge favor to them. Not only did he tell them the other entrance to the God-perishing abyss, but he also made it possible for them to have the most delicious bowl of soup in the Million Treasures Red Tide. This was equivalent to Di Shirtion giving them a huge benefit, a huge fortune. At this moment, they didn't have the face to resist the spread of the demon coins. Moreover, even if they wanted to resist, their subordinates might not be united. Sakura, this method is really brilliant. It's used to the acme of perfection. You've actually thought of using a sweet juju from the bottom of your heart to block our mouth from the start. The Blood Dragon King glanced around the valley and sighed with a strange smile. In his words, he really admired Di Shirtion's method. Unknowingly, he had calculated all of their reactions in his heart and had made arrangements against us long ago. No wonder he dared to play with the entire immortal cultivation world. Shaking his head slightly, a glimmer of light flashed in his mind. He rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, Since the spread of the demon coin is unstoppable and the creation of the demon coin is only exclusive to Sakura's family, it's impossible to share it. The material of the demon coin is too special. Even with my 1,000 years of experience, I can't see what it is. Moreover, I can't destroy it. This material, no matter where it is, it's precious and rare. If it is used as a demon coin, its value should be enough to guarantee. No one can interfere with the spread of the demon coins. In this case, I should also follow Di Shirtion and capture some cultivators who know how to refine weapons and alchemy in the immortal cultivation world, to help refine magic weapons and magic weapons. There are indeed too many good things in the myriad demon valley. There are even earth-level cultivation methods, which makes me itch. Since he couldn't touch the myriad demon valley, he immediately set his sights on the immortal cultivation world. What are you afraid of? I didn't kidnap before because I was afraid of those strong cultivators in the immortal cultivation world. Now that I have made a fortune in the Crimson Treasure Tide, I don't have to worry so much anymore. If it doesn't work, I can directly send people here to learn. I believe Di Shirtion shouldn't be stingy in this matter. The Blood Dragon King secretly planned in his heart. Needless to say, The other demon kings probably had the same idea in their hearts. Husband. In the pavilion under the waterfall in the valley, the melodious sound of the zither, accompanied by the sound of the waterfall, sounded. In the sound of the zither, there was a kind of free charm of birds flying in the sky and fish swimming in the sea. A kind of excitement, a kind of burgeoning mood, like a tide, rolling in wave after wave, came rolling in. It expressed the carefree feeling of the zither player. In the pavilion, Sakra's 10 fingers were flying as he quickly plucked the strings of the zither. Just looking at the way he played the zither, there was a kind of feeling of relaxation and joy, not to mention the beautiful sound of the zither. Since self-learning the zither, Tian had never let go of his zither skills. Instead, he had become more and more exquisite. He had a deep understanding of the 3 flavors of the zither. As the saying went, the zither was the heart of the heart. The heart was integrated into the zither sound, and the zither sound expressed the heart without restraint. Feng Wei played the zither. Tian's trump cards were indeed endless. However, the one that was really hidden and had never been revealed in front of anyone was the remnant of the 7 sins divine melody that he had obtained in his early years. It was not that he didn't want to reveal it, but that no one was worthy of him playing that divine melody. That was the biggest trump card that was really kept secret. Originally, he had intended to leave it to the Thousand Beasts sect, but unfortunately, the Thousand Beasts sect could not afford it. The introduction of the demon coins this time will inevitably cause a rift in the hearts of the demon kings. This matter should be properly considered. When the sound of the zither stopped, Chun Shi said softly, Sure, there's no need to worry about this. In order to introduce the demon coins to the entire demon clan, I've already paid a considerable price and given them great benefits. No matter what, they won't have the face to be difficult with me on this matter. However, I guess that the Rock Demon King and the others are now thinking about how to get a capable person who can refine weapons and pills for their own forces. Tian said with a certain expression, the unification of the currency is already unstoppable. This is irreversible from the moment they arrived in the Southern Barbarian. It's going to be a new week soon. Brothers, help to support it. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 5:13. Wisdom often needed to be supported by strength. Whether it was strong or empty, the difference was here. Think about it. If Tian hadn't cultivated to the current monster core 4 transformation realm before, if he dared to scheme against the monster kings like this, he was afraid that he would fall out with him in the blink of an eye and be directly swallowed without leaving any bones. He would definitely not be as easy to talk to as he was now. They stood on equal footing. When you didn't have strength, you schemed here and there. That was not wisdom. That was looking for shit in the latrine pit, courting death. Even if you had 1,000 poisonous schemes, the other party would directly blow you into pieces with a punch. If you used poisonous schemes, you would lose your life. How could you still use poisonous schemes? That was courting death for yourself. Now, with enough strength, it was the time for Tian to show his skills. His schemes were endless. He could make the monster kings unable to refute even when they knew that they were at a disadvantage. He could make the entire immortal cultivation world in a mess, and they still didn't know who was behind it. Let those big sects suffer a great loss in silence. All kinds of schemes needed to be supported by confidence behind them. Well, that's true. However, in my opinion, the construction of the Thousands Demon City needs to be accelerated. After Chun Shi nodded, a light flashed in his eyes, and he said, although the Thousands Demon Valley is a good place for cultivation, my husband's action of destroying the Thousands Beast sect will inevitably cause a huge wave in the immortal cultivation world. Now the attention is attracted by the Thousands treasure red tide in the god-perishing abyss. Once the red tide is over, our Southern Barbarian will inevitably become an important target in the immortal cultivation world. It's hard to guarantee that there won't be accidents. In his words, it could be said that he was thoughtful and far-sighted. After a pause, he continued, only by building the Thousands Demon City as soon as possible, with the ability of Tian Can and Huang Quan, we can also protect our foundation from damage. We really have no worries. Yes. Di Shirtun gently held her in his arms and said with a slightly dignified expression, we can't relax for even a day about the construction of the city. However, the materials needed to refine the divine crystal are almost massive. Some of the mineral deposits near the southern wilderness have almost been completely excavated. If it weren't for the immortal wine pavilion in the cultivation world constantly transporting materials to the southern wilderness, I'm afraid that the construction of the city would have been slowed down. Their only chance was to enter the Godfall abyss. With the help of this myriad treasure Crimson Tide, we can collect a huge amount of broken magic tools and magic treasure from the tide and refine them into divine crystals. Moreover, the most troublesome thing is to refine the 4 fake heavenly gates. The materials required are almost all innate materials. I'm afraid we can only place our hopes in the Godfall abyss. There was a trace of helplessness in his voice. Innate spiritual materials were not easy to find. For example, the Heavenly Fortune Jade was one of them. However, he had never heard of it appearing anywhere in all these years. This kind of treasure was not something that could be obtained easily. He could not obtain the real heavenly gates. Now, it was so difficult to even refine a fake one. In fact, Di Shirtian had thought that there were actually a few chances to refine a fake heavenly gate. If he could open the treasury sealed in the exquisite pagoda, with a huge amount of treasures in the treasury, he should be able to gather the materials needed to refine a fake heavenly gate. Then there was the Godfall abyss. He shook his head helplessly. His eyes swept over the Emperor Phoenix Bird, Diu, who was still standing on his left shoulder. He saw that the 3-color divine light kept flowing on its body. The power of heaven and earth around it kept flowing into its body. It was as if its body was a bottomless pit. After eating 100 seeds of life, the divine light on his body had become quite miraculous. On top of that, Di Shirtian had spared no expense in feeding her with spirit wine and all kinds of precious spirit items. Over the years, Diu had woken up a few times. She was indeed worthy of inheriting her parents' bloodline. Its magical powers were quite sharp. Although it was now standing on his shoulder and looked only the size of a palm, if it wanted to, it could immediately expand to dozens of feet in size. Its combat power was comparable to that of a combination realm cultivator. Moreover, it had not completely refined the countless spiritual herbs in its body. The huge amount of energy was all accumulated in its body. Once it digested all of it, its combat power would probably be even more powerful. It would reach an incredible level. Sleep well and cultivate. In the future, you will naturally amaze the world. He lovingly reached out and gently stroked Diu's head a few times. She also felt it. She opened her eyes slightly and looked at Di Shirtian. Then, she affectionately rubbed her head against his neck. Then, she closed her eyes again and silently absorbed the essence of the spiritual herbs in her body. When Di Shirtian came out of the Godfall abyss, it was only about 5 or 6 months since the outbreak of the Million Treasures Red Tide. It took less than half a month to return to the southern wilderness. After the rumors spread, it took another half a month. More than a month had passed. It was only 2 or 3 months before the Red Tide began. After all, the Red Tide could happen at any time. The time could not be completely determined. After discussing with the Demon Kings, it was decided that they would immediately set off for the Thousand Beast sect in half a month. During this half a month, the Thousand Demon Valley could be said to be extremely lively. The number of foreign demons added up to more than 10 million. All of them were able to condense and take human form with the help of the Purple Thunder Rain. All of them were going crazy for the various treasures in the valley. Dharma artifacts, Dharma treasures, spirit wine, elixirs, almost everything was available. They could choose any cultivation method they wanted. In the past, The demons lacked Dharma artifacts, Dharma treasures, cultivation methods, and elixirs. At that time, although the demons were fierce in battle, they would always be at a disadvantage when facing the cultivators in the immortal cultivation world who had Dharma treasures. Now, they all got themselves a Dharma artifact and Dharma treasure and chose a cultivation method from the Sutra depository. Their strength increased by a lot on the spot, and their combat power increased exponentially. Naturally, they were very happy. Many of the demons did not have the opportunity to cultivate cultivation methods. Although Tian had some plans, he also gave the demons a chance to greatly improve, especially the rare cultivation methods. These days, the demons were very grateful to Tian. This also made Tian's reputation in the demon race to a higher level. Moreover, according to the statistics of the Jubao court, this time it could be said that they had gained boundless benefits. Every demon was a very intelligent spirit creature. Before they became demons, they had the instinct to protect all kinds of spirit herbs. However, they did not have the ability to turn these treasures into treasures that they could use. Moreover, they were all the most precious treasures. Naturally, they carried them with them. Now, they were all used to exchange for demon coins. This made Tian a lot of money. Just the various spiritual herbs alone were over 1 million. Among them, there were some precious spiritual quenches, such as immortal peach seedlings, immortal pear fruit trees, and various other spiritual herbs and spiritual medicines. It was almost impossible to count. It was a big windfall. Among them, there were many high-grade refining materials, many of which even the myriad Demon Valley did not have. As for the demon coins, a total of 3 billion were issued from the Jubao court. There were also demon coin cards that had been circulated. 3 billion demon coins were enough to make the demon coins circulate throughout the entire demon race. It would replace everything and become the only currency of the demon race. Good, good, good. When Ming saw the huge amount of wealth, he shouted excitedly, "Lunatic D, your method of accumulating wealth is really brilliant. By controlling the forging of demon coins, you can immediately have an endless stream of benefits pouring in, especially those spiritual herbs. TSK. In ancient times, I'm afraid no one could gather so many spiritual herbs. These are all good things. In the future, when you obtain the source of the world, together with the source of life, you can develop an inner world in your body. These spiritual herbs will be very useful. They can greatly increase your strength in a short period of time. You will get endless benefits." What is the relationship between spiritual herbs and inner worlds? Tian could not help but be curious. Now that he had reached the 4th transformation of the Yao Dan and condensed a domain in his body, he already had all the elements to have an inner world of his own. The only thing he lacked was a source of the world. Naturally, there was no lack of yearning for the inner world that had many legends in the world. This time, when he went to the fallen god abyss, he had already thought about whether he could obtain a source of the world. It was said that the source of the world tree had basically matured and was about to be plucked. Some source of the world tree might be swept into the crimson tide. At that time, if he obtained the source of the world tree, he would be able to cultivate an inner world. That inner world was very important. It was said that the inner worlds of the unparalleled experts could suck their enemies in. When used against their enemies, the inner worlds were extremely powerful and were the most powerful treasures. The bigger and more stable the inner world, the faster one's cultivation speed would be by several times or even dozens of times. However, most of the things about the inner world were kept secret. Even Tian did not know much about it. Now that Ming was willing to talk about it, he naturally took the opportunity to ask. Now is the time to tell you the secret of the inner world." Ming smiled and said, "The inner world is a world that completely belongs to you. Moreover, it is in your body and is connected to you. There is no distinction between the inner world and the inner world. When the inner world is just born, it is a barren world of different sizes. However, the inner world will not be too big. It is just a small world that was just born. At this time, you need to carefully nurture it. In ancient times, the various experts fused all kinds of innate spiritual materials into their inner worlds to nurture their own small worlds. That way, the inner world would be greatly nourished. It would grow at an extremely fast speed. Because the inner world is an independent world, it is different from the source continent. It is not connected to the chaotic world at all. Therefore, it cannot absorb the chaotic chi from the chaotic world to strengthen itself. Therefore, it is necessary to find a new way to continuously strengthen the spiritual chi of the inner world. Brothers, let's do our best. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.